Yeah, hi. I'm really excited. Today we have Finoglobin's first investor meet. It's been some time that we were planning for this event. Finally, we could do it. We've got three amazing speakers today. I think Mr. Sorbh Gupta, who is the senior fund manager at Bajaj Finserv AMC. Then we have Borate, who is the deputy editor at the Mint newspaper. And then we have Mr. Gautam Adhukia, who is the co-founder of LiquiLoans peer-to-peer lending platform. And this is going to be a good 3 hours interactive and a learning experience for all our investors, including me as well. So looking forward to have all our investors today. So stay tuned. We've got going to have some amazing time today with all the three speakers. Come in. To all for the first investor meet of Finoglobin. Thank you for sparing time on a Saturday morning and making this for this event today. I have been planning this event since my previous job in Mata Securities. Somehow I couldn't do it that time, but I'm really glad that I could do it this time. So before I introduce you to the first speaker, let me take this opportunity to share some key statistics where Finoglobin stands today. Most of you would be knowing way back in October 2019, we started Finoglobin with a humble beginning with my mother-in-law's investment as the first investment. And today, after 4.5 years, I'm glad to state that today we've got more than 600 investors across 210 families and companies. We aspire to be a company which manages more than 125 crores in the next 3 months, which happens to be our 5th anniversary of the company, which is October 2024 May. We've always believed that what is good for our clients is good for us, and we want to be true to our profession because we handle hard-earned money of our investors, and our endeavor is to be a company which constantly adds value to a variety of investors who trust us. Over the past 4.5 years, we've had numerous events, exclusive virtual events for our clients relating to will writing, family trust, NPS, P2P lending, equity market outlook. And today I'm glad to have our first investor meet physically, inviting all of you over here. And I'm pretty sure the 3 hours which you're going to invest with us, you're going to have some amazing inputs from here because the three amazing speakers which we have, and I'm sure it's going to be an engaging as well as some value addition for you all. So, equity has become first love for a lot of investors these days. But what has equity stored for us as Indians for the years and decades to come? We have someone who manages thousands of crores for investors, Mr. Sorbh Gupta. Mr. Sorbh Gupta is a senior fund manager equity at Bajaj Finserv mutual fund. Mr. Gupta is an investment professional with 17 plus years of experience in Indian equity market across fund management, research, asset allocation, and has managed India dedicated long only equity mandates for some of the world's largest institutions as well as retail equity schemes of domestic mutual funds. Prior to joining Bajaj Mutual Fund, he was associated with Quantum Asset Management Company, where he gained valuable knowledge by regularly interacting with global pension funds and sovereign wealth management funds. Using this knowledge, he developed tools and processes which he later integrated into fund management for domestic equity fund management. He is a qualified chartered accountant and a charter holder of the CFA Institute, USA. Over to you, Saurabh. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, good morning, everyone. Nice Saturday morning. Cool, pleasant climate in Pune. Shifted Pune about 1.5 years ago, and from Bombay. Started to slow down now. 1.5 years. I'm not in a rush anymore to catch a train or a bus, so it's pretty relaxing. So when my colleague Kunal gave me options of कि किस चीज़ पे आज बात कर सकते हैं. So there was elections जिस पे आप बात कर सकते हैं. There was India story जिस पे आप बात कर सकते हैं. Other things as well. So I think most of us right now are very much interested in election outcome. All of us. और आज शाम को exit poll है. Everybody will be watching out, and then Tuesday, Monday को exit poll reaction, and Tuesday को actual outcome reaction. So I think this is a very good time to look beyond this about India equity story. Very, very nice time to look beyond elections, right? Now, how do we develop a India story? Look at this line, and no equity presentation gets completed by quotes without the quotes of Warren Buffett, right? So this is a very interesting quote. I don't know whether you went through at some point in time. I was born at the right time at the right place. I won the ovarian lottery, right? So whatever we are, while we feel that हम लोग बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हैं, we are brilliant people, and hence we are getting somewhere, it is very important to be at the right time at the right place. So Warren Buffett always says, I was blessed to be born in US at a time when US did very well. So large part of his returns is explained by right time at the right place. Now look at this one. 1965 May, there was a school in Seattle called Lakeside School. It installed school installation में one of the first computers, right? How is it related to us? Luckily or unluckily, Bill Gates went to that school. Right? So he had access to the first computer in schools in US. Right? And that is right time at the right place. Right? Similarly, for all of us, now look at Indian history. I have been an ardent reader of history. 2000 years of Indian history. उसके पीछे भी है, लेकिन 2000 साल की बात करते हैं. Last 2000 years का, we are living in the most peaceful 75 years in Indian history. Right? There is no Gauri attacking us. There is no Ghazni attacking us. There is no Abdali attacking us. There is no Babar attacking us. There is no East India Company happening for last 75 years. So we are also winning. We are also the winner of that ovarian lottery to be in a very peaceful period of Indian history. उसमें भी आप देखिए 1991 के बाद liberalization हो गया. So we are living in the fastest growth era of India for last 25-30 years. So this is the ovarian lottery that we have won, and we need to capitalize on that. Right? So this is how we should think while investing. Now, elections ki 2 slides I have kept because I thought it will be interesting. So how many of you feel in the last 1 month, the way FIs have sold, markets have been volatile, how many of you think that market is trying to tell you the outcome of elections? How many of you think? It's like tail wagging the dog, right? Fact is, markets have always been volatile before elections. So this is the data of volatility index since 2009. Every time general elections we have had, however certain of the outcome, the volatility has increased from 40 to 50, from 15 to 30, from 15 to again around 25, and in this time also it is increased. So no market does not know more than you and me about election outcomes. It is anybody's game. While we'll assign a higher probability to the regime continue, which we like, because India's political stability score has improved drastically after 2013. And this data is important not for us, but for FIs. They are still 16% of Indian equity markets, right? So if the political stability score continues to improve and lower level, the risk of investing in India goes down for FIs, and you get a lot of flows. So we expect कि ये continue रहना चाहिए for FI flows to come in. So this is one factor that is very, very important. If you look at some of the peer emerging market and developing countries, we are one of the best in terms of political stability score. Now, whenever we are looking at India's story, let's break it up into 3 parts. एक है short term election, Monday, Tuesday. दूसरा है मीडियम टर्म. अभी मीडियम टर्म में हाउ थिंग्स आर शेपिंग अप. I think from a medium term perspective, we are in a very, very good footing. And why do I say that? There are 4 or 5 factors which drive equity returns from a medium term perspective. How economy does. One is your public capex. The government putting in more money to build bridges, rails, roads, and it has a multiplier effect in the society. You get more jobs, more job creation, other things. That is happening over the last 3-4 years. That is one reason, and we believe this will continue. Second factor is private capex pickup. After 10 years or maybe more, if I have that data, yeah, look at this slide. These 3 lines that are going up. After 2007-8, first time we are seeing such a strong pickup where corporates are investing more on factories, more on capacities and other things. Right? So this brings, again, this is a 7-8 year cycle. Once you start building factories and other things, there is a large multiplier effect that happens in a society. The third factor is residential real estate. Residential real estate is again a very, very strong multiplier effect in a society. It supports close to 65 industries. Right? And it is again an 8-year cycle. 8 साल का cycle होता है. अगर आप देखें, go back in history, 2005-6 से लेके 2013 was an up cycle in real estate. 2013 से 2020 it was a down cycle in real estate. 2020-21 से it has bottomed out, and I'm sure I visited multiple cities. Every city is seeing strong demand and price pickup in residential real estate, including Pune. Right. So this again is an 8-year cycle. We are into 3rd or 4th year. I have no reason to believe कि 8 साल नहीं चलेगा. So you have 3 great drivers of Indian economy doing well. But can we support that growth? If you look at corporate balance sheets, and you do a simple exercise, don't go by this chart. आप ऐसा कीजिए, BSE 500 की कंपनीज का एक लिस्ट निकालिए और 2018 का वो लिस्ट निकालिए और आज का वो लिस्ट निकालिए. 2018 में there will be many companies who are verge of collapse, having a lot of debt and all sort of things. Today, it is difficult to find a company which has lot of debt. Almost every company has become net debt, net cash. जिसको भी insolvent होना था, clean up होना था, वो सब हो गया. So you are living in a time where there is a very strong corporate balance sheet who can fund their capacity growth. Right. Second is the data I am not put in the chart. Second point is there is a very strong banking balance sheet in this country. I have not seen such a strong capitalization of banks for the last 15-20 years. Indian banks are supposed to be capitalized at 9%, 6 tier 1, 3 tier 2. Most of the Indian banks are working with 17 and 18% capital. Very well capitalized, almost negligible NPS. So I have not seen a country where your banking system is strong and corporate balance sheet is strong, still earning growth does not come. So from a medium term outlook, excellent position to be in for an equity investor. Now comes the most important part, the long term, which should be the most important aspect of equity investors. Unfortunately, for people who have come to equity markets after 2020, long term is 3 months. I am talking about a little more long term. So how will the country do from a longer term perspective? We need to understand, because we are already part of ovarian lottery. Do we continue to win the lottery is important. This is a very long term chart, too long term in fact. This study was done by a European university. If you look at this yellow bars are India's share in global GDP, and this red is China. In 1500, 1600, 1700 till 1800. For 300 years, India and China ruled the global GDP. We were the best in terms of resources, handicrafts, raw materials, spices. In fact, somebody was trying to find a route to India, ended up inventing USA. That was the power of India, right? Things move in a cycle. Because of invasion, because of East India or whatever reasons you want to assign it to, India and China missed out on industrial revolution. Hence, both the shares declined very, very rapidly. Post 2000, you can clearly see China is winning the manufacturing war in the world, and we are already winning and will continue to win the services war. So, our place, being old civilizations, philosophically speaking, we should be back there with a large share, around 14% of global GDP, where things are shaping up. So this is a very, very longer term chart, but it's a good thing to think philosophically that things move in a cycle, not only for humans, but also for countries and civilizations. What are the basic tenets of an economy, of on why should they do well? People here understand basic school level economics, right? I also understand only basic school level economics. So there are four factors which drive production: land, labor, capital and enterprise. अभी एंटरप्राइज तो मुझे इस कंट्री में कितना अच्छा है डिमो के टाइम पे पता चल गया. In 20 days, this country made all the black money white and government did not do anything. This is the enterprise level of this country, right? This is the epitome of enterpriseness. Now comes to land. Any guess how large are we compared to the world? We are seventh largest country in the world, right? Lot of other countries are bigger than us. But if you look at arable land where we can cultivate, thanks to the Indo-Gangetic plains and the alluvial soils of Deccan, we have the largest arable land in the world. So from four factors, एक factor तो हमारी तरफ है, which is land. We have land, right? If you look at Singapore, so I was in Singapore. I've been there a couple of times. मैं एक साल पहले भी गया था. You know, Singapore is like Mumbai, right? More beautiful and well-made Mumbai. But आप सोचिए, आप मुंबई में रहते हैं और आपको लोनावला जाने के लिए पासपोर्ट लगेगा. आपको बर्फ देखने के लिए पासपोर्ट चाहिए. It's such a difficult place to live in, right? They don't have land. That's Singapore's problem. Japan does not have land. Dubai does not have land. We have land, right? So we are winning there. We have arable land. We have lots of land. Despite such a huge population, we can set up big, large factories, big semiconductor plants and stuff because we have land. So that is one thing that we are winning. Second is labor. I think it's the most obvious topic talking about demographic dividend and stuff. So we have labor, and thanks to the kind of education that we are getting into, we have an advantage on labor also. Right? So we have well qualified engineers, CAs, doctors, plenty of them. In fact, one of my friends works in Millennium in UK, in London. He told me there is a 3-month waiting for a knee replacement surgery in UK. There is a 1 month waiting for a dentist appointment in US. And I'm not talking about government hospitals, private में. In fact, उसका एक friend था जिसके दांत में दर्द हुआ, उसको अपॉइंटमेंट नहीं मिला. He had to flew to India. यहाँ पे आके दांत ठीक करा के गया. So we have the labor benefit also, which is again a long-term input to do well. Enterprise का मैंने बात कर लिया. तो हमारे पास क्या कम है? वो है capital. Look, India has been a poor country since 1947 at least, right? In a poor country, it's a cycle we get stuck into. Because you are poor, most of the money you generate, you consume, you don't save, right? So the pool of saving is less. And because you have less money to save, because you will invest less because you don't have money. So that cycle is getting stuck for us. Now somehow we are now breaking that barrier. Now reaching at $2,500 of per capita income, we are breaking that barrier. So we will have more saving pool. That is one advantage. So that वो चार factors में से जो capital का factor है, that we are eroding. Second factor, and वो आपको equity markets में भी दिख रहा है, the way the flows are coming in mutual funds and stuff, because savings is increasing. Second है, we have the land, we have the labor, we have the enterprise, and others have capital. Right? So Europe has a lot of capital, it does not have people. Singapore has a lot of capital, it does not have land. South Korea has a lot of capital, but does not have enterprise. And now, why do I say that? 60% of Korea's GDP is represented by 6 companies, 6 groups. Those are called chaebols. Only 6. This is the lack of enterprisesness in that country. Right? So we have everything, and we will attract capital because of that. So these are some of the headlines that I picked. If you look at global development centers, GCCs, global captive centers of MNCs, India attracts more than 50% of all the GCCs getting placed in the world. Right? This is huge. Across IT, financial services, and banking, India has the world's third largest system of startups. So we are getting enough capital. So you have land, you have labor, you have enterprise, and now you have capital. This means your growth rate should be much, much better. One point is extremely important, ki GDP per capita, how is it important for you, right? Now, all of us know we are talking about $4 trillion of economy, $5 trillion of economy. What is in for me? How do I benefit from that is extremely important. Now, we are reaching a stage of $2,500 of per capita income in India, जिसको कि प्रति व्यक्ति आय बोलते हैं हिंदी में, right? If you go back in history and look at countries which have reached that spot, it is a kind of a J curve that starts from that point. जैसा मैं आपको बता रहा था, उस point तक large part of the population is busy with roti, kapda and makan. Post that, you have savings and you have discretionary consumption. So China reached that number in 2007-8, $2,500 per capita income. 2015 में they became close to $10,000. 7-8 साल में. हमको समय ज़्यादा लगेगा, पर वो जल्दी पहुँचे. Now I'll just give you a number. In 2007, when they were $2,500, they were selling 1 lakh SUVs, which is bigger cars. Can you guess a number? How many SUVs were they selling in 2016 when they reached $9,000? 15 lakhs. 15x. If you look at India, we talk about K-shaped recovery, and it will normalize. People think post-COVID K-shaped recovery, rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer. But no, that premiumized story is structural in nature. अगर आप last 3 साल का इंडिया का ऑटोमोबाइल सेल का डेटा निकालेंगे, 1500 cc से ज़्यादा more powerful engine वाली कार are growing at 20. Sales of those cars are growing by 20% every year. Less than 1500 cc are growing at 4%. उसमें से भी मैं ओला उबर कैब्स हटा दूंगा तो वो नंबर और भी खराब लगेगा. So the trend is already there. As an equity investor, we need to benefit from those trends, and it impacts companies in a very, very interesting way. Now, let's talk about between 1990 to 2000. Well, a lot of people are younger here, but still I will ask. 1990 to 2000, which was the fastest selling motorcycle in India? Hero Honda 100cc, Splendor or CD100 or whatever you want to see. It was a 100cc bike, and that stock that represented that market did really well, maybe till 2003-4. Uske baad, next 10 years, which bike was the fastest selling? Which segment? Pulsar, Bajaj, 150cc, right? 150 to 200cc. The market moved up. Hero did not manage to launch premium 150 200cc bikes too much, so Bajaj was the biggest beneficiary, and somehow TVS. 2009 to 2020 or maybe 17-18, which was the fastest selling bike in India? Bullet, 250cc. Another company which was benefiting. So two-wheeler story is playing out for 30 years. But there are different companies in different segments which are benefiting. So as a long-term equity investor, you have to be careful आप कहाँ पे बैठे हो. आप हीरो लेके बैठे रहते तो बैठे ही रहते. मतलब सब optimal return आता आपका, right? So you have to think how market is changing because of per capita income and internals of the economy changing, and you have to create portfolios and investments accordingly. India may be luxury goods, as I've already talked about that. Now this is extremely important chart. Right? How many of you believe that India should do what China did in terms of growth? We all believe that ना कि China story को replicate करना चाहिए, लेकिन उसमें एक catch है. Look at this. Last 15 years, China का GDP growth has been 11.7% annually. Look at the equity returns, 3.4%. China का GDP growth is not getting reflected in equity returns somehow, right? So it might look very exciting कि यार हमें चाइना जैसा ग्रो होना चाहिए, पर as an equity investor it's not a good thing, right? Look at US, GDP growth at 4.4, benchmark return at 7.6. So it is growing faster than your GDP. Long term it will mean revert. Look at the beauty of India. India's per capita, GDP is growing at 12.5% nominal GDP. This is inflation plus real GDP. And our equity returns is very, very similar. This is much more sustainable. तो अगर जीडीपी में ग्रोथ हुआ तो आपको इक्विटी रिटर्न्स भी मिलेंगे इंडिया में, एंड दैट इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट. मोस्ट पीपल मिस द फैक्ट दैट आज से 10 साल पहले हैंगसेंग इंडेक्स वाज कंपेयर्ड विद सेंसेक्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू. सेंसेक्स वाज 23-24,000 आज से 10-15 साल पहले. हैंगसेंग भी उसी लेवल पे था. टुडे हैंगसेंग इज एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू इज बिलो निफ्टी और ऑलमोस्ट एट निफ्टी लेवल. दैट इंडेक्स इज 1/3. सो जीडीपी ग्रो होता रहा, इक्विटी वाले को रिटर्न ही नहीं मिला. It could be because government interference. It could be because it's a communist country. It could be because it is a command economy. I don't know. But I hope we don't follow the China model. We follow the India model. So for a long-term equity investor, where should we anchor our thoughts in terms of equity returns? If you look at last 40 years.
So, one question. So, sorry to interrupt you. But why is that the FI's flows are more towards China than India? Historically, they have not given returns. So you say it's a communist country, or whatever the other reasons. But why there are more FI flows still?
देखिए, so FIs are also not the most smartest people, right? I'll tell you. And there is a category called emerging markets. ठीक है? So emerging markets में China is close to 25% अभी भी. I think maybe 30%. I'm missing that number, 25 or 30%. If as a FI investor I am running an EM strategy, ठीक है, तो मैं 25% को जीरो नहीं करूंगा. If I am still bearish on China, I will not make it zero. I'll maybe make it 10, 15, but still there will be an allocation to China, and China is much larger as a country, right? So in absolute number, it will still continue to attract capital. But last 3 years, it has not attract. 4 or 5 years, it has not attract lot of capital. I'll tell you, the break point of China came, but according to me, about 4 years ago, there was an IPO coming in China called Ant Financials. You remember that? Jack Ma was driving it. Suddenly, one day, Jack Ma disappeared for a month. Nobody knew where he was. Government took him away. And after that, government came out with a rule that certain category of companies cannot make profits because they are public welfare companies. I think that was a break point of government interference in terms of your जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप जिसको बोलते हैं ना कि कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी ब्रेक हो गई, बिकॉज नाउ एफआईज आर अफ्रेड कि वो किसको कब क्या बोल देगा गवर्नमेंट. एंड यू because you are as an investor you are you cannot factor that risk. I will tell you in my investment also in last 6 months, while whatever regulator does is a longer term very good, but Indian regulators over last 6 months have done very similar things. Look at the notices, regulatory notices that have been sent to companies in terms of GST, in terms of abolishment of certain businesses and other things. As an investor, it is very difficult to factor that in your model. And suddenly the stock goes 10% down. Right? So what I have done in the portfolio is that I am very careful of certain sectors where regulatory action can be higher. So I am underweight that. So those things happen. So until China improves that, money flow will not improve that much. So I think last 4-5 years, as a disproportionate share, India is getting lot more money. So India's share in emerging market has grown from 11-12% to close to 20-21%, if I'm not wrong. Now, coming to where do I anchor my thoughts as an equity investor? Now, last 40 years, India has seen many things. India has seen a Kargil war, coalition governments, absolute governments, and lot other things. India's GDP, real GDP, has grown at 6.5%, 6 to 6.5% on an average. उसके अंदर जीएफसी भी आ गया, उसके अंदर कोविड भी आ गया, उसके अंदर डीएमओ भी आ गया, उसके अंदर जीएसटी भी आ गया, सब कुछ आ गया, 6 से 6.5% पे हमारा ग्रोथ हो जाता है। 5% के आसपास हैज बीन द एवरेज इन्फ्लेशन इन आवर कंट्री, 5.5%. So safely speaking, our nominal GDP will grow at 11.5%. Right now, companies that are represented in the listed universe are generally larger companies. Larger companies tend to gain market share. So larger companies' revenues should grow by 12 to 13%. If the GDP continues to grow, there is no reason to believe it will not grow. If it grows by 12 to 13%, hopefully margins being stable, 12 to 13% should be a profit growth. As an equity manager, active equity manager, if I can pick companies who are doing a little better, an active portfolio can give you a 1 to 2% alpha over that, very conservatively speaking. So from an equity mutual fund perspective or active portfolio perspective, you can expect a return of 13 to 14% every year from your equity portfolio over a longer period of time. And this is what I was talking about. Right? So in the last 20 years, this red line is the earnings growth or EPS growth of Nifty, and this is the returns of Nifty. Closely replicates that. So अगर earnings ठीक है तो आपको returns मिलेंगे. अब इलेक्शंस में क्या होता है नहीं होता है वो नियर टर्म रिएक्शन है जो हमें सबको झेलना पड़ेगा, बट अदरवाइज थिंग्स आर इंटैक्ट फॉर नेक्स्ट 5, 10, 15 years of 12, 13, 14% compounding in India. Thank you.
So the forum is open for question answers. Yes, sir. So
just wanted to understand between and direct equity and through a mutual fund. And a question is from a mutual fund perspective. If you see, mutual fund has a lot of rules and regulations wherein you need to place between liquid funds and various other. So can there be a portfolio of a mutual fund where more risk, more return? Because as an investor, if I am ready to invest in direct equity, but through a mutual fund with less of liquidity related parameters, but a better return mutual fund. Because what I see currently, mutual fund returns near about are with the Sensex returns 2-3% here and there. Can at a portfolio level, you can have a better return portfolio where less of liquid investments, etc. My question is more better equities, less of liquid investments in a mutual fund. Such type of funds can be planned by either of the fund managers through the regulations, etc.
Correct. So, look, from what I understand, all the active equity funds generally run 97-98% equity only. They will hardly keep 2-3% liquid. I'm not talking about balance advantage funds, I'm talking about fully equity funds, right? So generally they will keep 97-98%. Now, mutual fund is a very diverse and heterogeneous basket. Frankly speaking, I'm very happy the way mutual funds are evolving in India. You have certain fund houses which are taking very high risk, according to me, and since momentum is in their favor, they are giving high returns. Right? Now, if somebody has a risk appetite of seeing large drawdowns, they can bet there. Right? On the other end of the spectrum, I see mutual funds who are very deep value oriented. They don't take much risk, but they are much more stable. The drawdowns are much lesser. मतलब जब गिरता है तो मार्केट से कम गिरता है. So other extreme उधर भी है. And there are a lot of places जो बीच में. So अगर आप if you can identify really what suits you, your plate is full in terms of mutual funds. Right? Within that, you have small caps, high risk, high return. You have large and mid, you have mid and small, you have balance advantage, you have multi-asset. You can choose whatever you want to. Now coming to your comparison with direct equities. देखिए direct equities, there is a concept called dopamine. As an equity guy for last 17 years or maybe more, जब मैं CA आर्टिकलशिप कर रहा था तभी मैं अपना आर्टिकलशिप छोड़ के बोल्ट पे ट्रेडिंग करने भाग जाता था. मेरा आर्टिकल मेरे को पकड़ के लेके जाता था, मैं प्रिंसिपल मेरे को. तो ideation and direct equity gives you a very large dopamine kick जिसको मिलता है. But beyond that, a balanced portfolio creation, keeping it, tracking it is not easy. आप एक डाइवर्सिफाइड पोर्टफोलियो बनाएंगे खुद के लिए भी कम से कम 15-20 स्टॉक आपको लेना चाहिए. 20 स्टॉक्स, लॉट ऑफ न्यूज कमिंग, आपको बैलेंस करना है, रीबैलेंस करना है. इफ यू हैव टाइम एंड यू हैव दैट पैशन टू रीड एन एनुअल रिपोर्ट एंड रीड दैट क्वार्टरली रिपोर्ट, I think an individual investor definitely can beat a mutual fund. You are absolutely right. But the fact is, India में जो literacy है that is 70%, financial literacy is 0.7%, maybe. ठीक है. तो वो खबर पे आप काम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो तो बैंड बजने वाली है. ठीक है. लेकिन अगर आपके पास समय है और आप बैठ के एनुअल रिपोर्ट पढ़ सकते हैं, आप देख सकते हैं एवरी क्वार्टर, आप ट्रैक रख सकते हैं, आप एक मॉडल बना सकते हैं अपने लिए और आपको कब रीवैल करना है, कब महंगा हो गया, कब ट्रिम करना है, देन nothing like it, because you have a lot more flexibility. But do you have enough time? That is, and that passion. So many people who come to interview freshers, I always tell them कि आप ये annual report पढ़ो और फिर आओ. Half of them will not come. Reading an annual report is such a boring job. Trading is very exciting, right? So आप अगर कर सकते हैं तो डेफिनेटली आई ऑल्सो फील कि अगर कोई अच्छा काम करता है, शांति से बैठ के घर पे बैठ के एनुअल रिपोर्ट पढ़ेगा, बनाएगा नोट्स, वो तो अच्छा करेगा. लेकिन ज्यादातर लोगों के पास ना समय है ना उतना पैशन है वो करने का. और थोड़ा सा मतलब देखिए, थैंक्स टू यूट्यूब एंड व्हाट्सएप यू कैन लर्न वेरी क्विकली, बट देन यू हैव टू हैव पैशन फॉर दैट.
How can that? So my question was that time is an issue. Okay, there might be people who understand and report and they can do it. But definitely the second factor, you said time. Correct? How can that be factored by the funds? Few funds. I'm saying there are 1,000 funds in India. There can be few 10, 15 funds who factor all those and try to get a more better return with more risk.
So that's what I'm saying. If you look carefully, with 240, I think there will be 240 odd mutual funds in India. Not fund houses, schemes.
Yes.
230, 240. You will find something of your liking. You'll easily find. You have to do your homework. In fact, it is evolving very, very fast, and I'm liking it. That the way the mutual fund industry is expanding, you will have plus you have a regulator which will always tighten certain things for us. We are in a much tighter regulated now because it's still a retail product. इंडिया में अगर आप रिटेल का पैसा ले रहे हो, देयर विल बी लॉट ऑफ रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस दैट यू हैव टू फॉलो. तो वो रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस होते हुए, आई थिंक देयर आर अक्रॉस द रिस्क स्पेक्ट्रम यू विल गेट इनफ प्रोडक्ट्स फॉर टेकिंग हायर रिस्क, हायर रिटर्न्स. बट यू शुड हैव एन एपेटाइट फॉर डूइंग दैट. ऑल ऑफ अस डू नॉट हैव.
Thank you.
You have a question, sir?
Now we are kind of touching, that is what you mentioned. So is that time value factored in or absolute number?
These are absolute numbers.
So does that mean 2,500 in 2007 versus 2024? They are not comparable. That's the comparison.
हाँ, बट लेकिन हमने क्या है कि डॉलर लिया है ना, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो टाइम वैल्यू थोड़ा फैक्टर हो जाता है कि करेंसी हमारी डिप्रिशिएट हो गई. ठीक है, वहां पे 40 था, अभी 80 है, तो वो एडजस्टमेंट आपका करेंसी लेवल पे थोड़ा हो जाता है. जी.
Yes. There were 3 points that you said. One was with respect to FII, and again, the major part of it today be large services extent. Second thing, I think, in terms of what he was saying, we are getting to a point where we reach the per capita income of $2,500.
Yeah.
How do we, from an FII perspective, and from a services perspective, and we reaching that $2,500 per capita will part, the cost of investment and the return majorly India case में है, because हम लोग cost optimal country है जहाँ पर scale है. Per capita income बढ़ने के साथ साथ, how do you see this impact from an FII perspective, especially on the services industry, in your opinion?
I did not get your question. Absolutely. मतलब FII मतलब आप FDI इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की बात कर रहे हैं?
Foreign investments की बात कर रहा हूँ, especially with respect to services.
Okay.
And उसमें भी जहाँ पर
ठीक है.
capital income
I got it. तो आप ये बोल रहे हो कि धीरे धीरे हमारा लेबर आर्बिट्राज खत्म हो जाएगा क्योंकि हम महंगे होते जा रहे हैं. That's your point. देखिए, we run a current account deficit of to 3%. Any country in the world which runs a 2-3% current account deficit, currency will continue to depreciate. हो सकता है 3 साल नहीं गिरे, 2 साल में गिर जाएगी, लेकिन अगर आप हिस्ट्री देखें 30 रुपीज था, आज 85 रुपीज है. ठीक है, वो ग्रेजुअल डिप्रिसिएशन होना चाहिए. And I really don't know why people are afraid of a currency depreciation. Right? I have not seen any country in the world which has become an export powerhouse or developed without depreciating its currency. Right? So orderly currency depreciation will take a lot of that risk. Otherwise, Indian IT services 2006 में बंद हो जाता, क्योंकि प्राइस हाइक तो मिलता नहीं है. आज भी आप $18 में ही काम कर रहे हो ऑफशोर में, और वहां $65 पे काम कर रहे हो, और सैलरी हाइक तो आपको 8-10% देना ही है यहाँ पर. राइट, तो वो करेंसी डिप्रिशिएशन टेक्स केयर ऑफ इट.
Hey, first, thanks for the great session and sharing your insights about the Indian market. My question is more on the India story in the next 25 years. As we see that over the last 25 years, it has been mainly service dominant growth story for us. And you also mentioned about the manufacturing capabilities that are getting built now. So the coming 20-25 years, are they going to be dominated only by manufacturing, or it is going to be a mix of both? So as an investor, where should we be kind of more inclined towards? So that's the question.
Good point, sir. Look, if I look at from a very novice perspective, I always feel services industries are much better for investments. You have an ability to generate infinity of ROE. Incremental capital requirement is less. That's why you will see that services business give you more equity returns over a period of time. So as an equity investor, yes. Now, about 7-8 years ago, thanks to my previous organization, I had gone to a conference in China. I visited an air conditioner plant. That plant was as big as a village. I've never seen that scale. Such scale I couldn't have even think of. Right? So I think it's a huge battle to win manufacturing against China still in terms of scale. However, even if we get something out of it, they are so big, right? So for example, I'll just give you one point. Have you heard of a act which has been getting passed in US called Biosecure Act? So they are passing a Biosecure Act wherein they are saying that because if you need to create biosimilars and biologics, a type of medicine in pharma, you have to have the genome of lot of natives that has to be sent to the companies. So a lot of those genomes of Americans are being sent to US, which the American government is not liking. So there are a lot of big chemical companies, API manufacturers in China, which are supplying to US pharma companies on biosimilars. So US government is not liking it. That market is close to $180 billion. Right? Once that Biosecure Act comes, it will get implemented in 2030. Right? So there will be a drastic, desperate push for companies looking out to outsource cheap manufacturing out of China. Some of the Indian companies, pharma, especially CRAMS, contract research manufacturing companies, should benefit out of that. Right? So these smaller things, where we are on the right side of the global trade, those sectors will benefit. Right? So this sector could benefit. Second is semiconductor. Right? Now the semiconductor push that we are seeing, it's part of a global plan to de-risk from Taiwan. Taiwan produces 75% of global chips, and you can't run anything without a semicon chip. Anything, neither a watch nor a tank, battle tank. Right? So everybody is afraid. What if China attacks Taiwan? Because during COVID, almost everybody felt that pain that you do not have semicon chips. So all the countries, so US is setting up semicon, Mexico is setting up, Europe is setting up, India is setting up semicon chips. So those risks, geopolitics will ensure that we get our fair share of manufacturing. Where there could be faster growth for some time, definitely in the portfolio you should have some manufacturing names which are benefiting from those things. But somehow, personally, I believe services is a very decent piece as a country, as a portfolio also. Now we export $300 billion worth of IT services annually now, which is more than what Saudi exports oil. सऊदी का ऑयल खत्म हो जाएगा एक दिन, आईटी सर्विसेज तो खत्म ही नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि ह्यूमन ब्रेन है, लगाया भेजा, लॉग किया क्लाइंट सर्वर में, भेज दिया, आपने कुछ मतलब आपका फिजिकल एफर्ट, फिजिकली कुछ गया ही नहीं और $300 बिलियन आ गए आपके घर पे. आप देखिए, look at the companies which have become $1 trillion market cap. How many of them are manufacturing companies? How many of them are banks? How many of them are technology? Technology has inherent infinite ROIs. That's why they give you much better returns. So as a portfolio manager, you'd love those companies which have infinite ROI. Capital का जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ता incremental production के लिए. I'll take his question, sir. Then we'll come back to you.
Hello. This is Sorbh. Thanks for a very good session. In one of your slides, you have shown that around 40-50% of returns could be easily expected.
Easy is a difficult word. You should expect that.
One can expect. Okay. So, like I've also read many articles. It's mentioned that we'll soon see Sensex at 1,50,000. So, giving the compounding effect with 15% return, and that should be practically possible in, let's say, 4-5 years. Yeah. So, do you also see that happening earlier than 5 years, 4-5 years, and whether it's better to put money on index rather than shares? Because anyway,
No, so index is a representation of shares.
yeah, but directly putting on the index, money on the index, then we usually share. Because anyway, if you are finally going to reach 15% return, it's a good amount of return.
देखिए, if what the compounding that I am talking about, if earnings compound, and I believe P multiples can remain the same, we are at fair value 18, 21, whatever multiple you assign to. If the earnings continue to compound, your returns will come. Okay, index may be, right? So now then it depends upon how you want to play the game. Right? Are you ready to take a chance of a little higher return? Okay. Then you should look at a diversified equity, non-index investing. Right? तो वो आप कर सकते हो. Now often people tell me कि है ना, अरे सर आजकल around 40% of the active managers do not outperform index. So I should invest in index, right? तो मेरा I am an active manager, right? You are asking my bread and butter, ठीक है? तो मेरा जवाब ये होता है कि you tell me how many index fund managers have beaten the index? 0. यहाँ पे तो 10 में से 6 चांस है कि आपका एक्टिव मैनेजर आपको ज्यादा रिटर्न देगा. So you should put your bet there. Yeah.
But do you expect this 1,50,000 happening sooner?
सर अगर 6 ये जो ये आप मान के चल रहे हो 30, अच्छी बात है. आई एम ऑल्सो
ना तो एक्सपेक्ट करना ही पड़ेगा.
सही बात है. देखिए मैं है ना, मुझे हमेशा ऐसा लगता है कि अ कंट्री इज ऑलवेज बिगर देन अ पर्सन. एंड नो टू थॉट्स अबाउट दैट, ही इज डूइंग अ ग्रेट जॉब. ठीक है. In 1981 there was a term coined, India is Indra and Indra is India and India is Indra. इंदिरा गांधी का इतना वर्चस्व था उस समय पे. बट आप मुझे बताइए 1984 के बाद भी डन वेल, राइट? सो कंट्रीज आर ऑलवेज बिगर देन पर्सन. ठीक है. तो डोंट एंकर योर थॉट टू वन पर्सन. व्हाइल इफ ही कम्स ही इज डूइंग अ ग्रेट जॉब. आई एम नॉट, आई वुड लव टू, आई एम 97% deployed, I am working in a mutual fund, so I want him to come back for the stability, right? So that the policy continuation is there, right? That I want. लेकिन 1% cannot change big time in a democratic society, deviate lot of things for a large country like us. ठीक है. तो आप उस पे एंकर मत कीजिए, आप अर्निंग्स पे देखिए. अगर 13-14% पे आपकी अर्निंग कंपाउंड हो रही है तो उसी लेवल पे आपका निफ्टी, आपका सेंसेक्स, आपका BSE 200, BSE 500, बजाज फिंसर्व फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड, जो आप अर्निंग्स कंपाउंड करोगे वैसा वैसा कंपाउंडिंग आपको मिलेगा. We had a question somewhere.
Hello. Good morning. My question is just like a retail investor, one option is a mutual fund. The second option is there are certain products like small cases coming, which are also taken or managed by some CFOs, if I'm not wrong. So, how regulated are those products, and are the benefits of those products in the long term, do you think, would be better than as the stocks or whatever are directly reflected into the demat account as opposing to a mutual fund?
You are asking a very biased person. I think mutual funds are the best. सो दैट वुड बी माई आंसर. बट देखिए ये सब मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, आप है ना इक्विटी स्पेक्ट्रम को है ना पूरा थिंक इट वेरी वेरी ऑब्जेक्टिवली. फर्स्ट वन शुड लुक एट योर ओन एबिलिटी एंड इंटेंट टू टेक रिस्क. ठीक है, आप अपनी बैलेंस शीट देखिए, पर्सनल बैलेंस शीट्स, एंड ये मेरा पर्सनल थॉट है. ठीक है, आपका वेल्थ देखिए एंड आप कितना रिस्क ले सकते हैं वो देखिए. डेफिनेटली म्यूचुअल फंड्स मे बी देयर आर 250 स्कीम्स विद डिफरेंट रिस्क्स. व्हाइल रिस्कोमीटर सब आपको हाई दिखाता है, लेकिन volatility small cap में आपको ज्यादा रहेगी, large cap पे कम रहेगी. It's an obvious thing, right? Some managers are more conservative, some are aggressive. So you have to find out that. Based on risk appetite, you can do it. Some of the CFOs might be because they have created a lot of wealth and they want a little more dopamine. They can do क्योंकि आपका स्टॉक आपके पोर्टफोलियो में आता है. Some do PMSs, some do AIFs. So this product portfolio will continue to increase. You have to analyze yourself and invest. Right? Well, I believe once you have created enough wealth for that appetite, then you can start small allocations towards these products which are less regulated and where accountability is less. As a mutual fund manager, I am more accountable than Indian cricket captain. He is not judged for 1 day, 5 days, 7 days, 15 days, 1 month, 3 months, standard deviation, Sharpe ratio, Jensen's alpha. But I am. And you get money at T plus 1, and it is the safest in terms of the regulations. The regulations are extremely tight, right? So if you have created enough wealth, you can think of different products, but please understand them better before investing.
You see, this term, on the third term of the government would retire. The government always, that channel that you have to go occupy POK or get what they would here. Are there going to be changes in taxation, long-term taxes, or they are going to make petrol and GST regime? So there will be many big decisions that Modi has promised in his third term. With the third term, do you see more volatile market than what we have seen in last?
क्या जवाब दूं इसका? देखिए मुझे ऐसा लगता है उन लोगों को समझ में आता है इक्विटी मार्केट्स आर बैरोमीटर ऑफ इकोनॉमीज है, तो उतना तो वो नहीं करेंगे. जहां तक टैक्सेशन का बात है वो पक्का लगाएंगे फॉर श्योर. जितना भी फीलर्स दैट आई एम गेटिंग, दिस इज द मोस्ट लेफ्टिस्ट राइट विंग गवर्नमेंट दैट आई हैव सीन. ठीक है, तो टैक्स तो आने वाला है. लास्ट 3 साल में केपेक्स ग्रोथ इंडिया में, पब्लिक सेक्टर केपेक्स, गवर्नमेंट केपेक्स हैज ग्रोन बाय 30%. इस बार का वोट ऑफ अकाउंट आप देखेंगे तो 12% ग्रोथ है. वो उनको चलने वाला नहीं है. दे विल गो फॉर टैक्सेशन, हायर टैक्सेशन, मोस्ट लाइकली कैपिटल गेन्स, हायर कैपिटल गेन्स टैक्स. वो तो मेरे को लगता है आएगा. उसके अलावा पीओके वीओके आई वुड नॉट हैव. देखिए नोबडी वांट्स टू पे मोर टैक्सेस एंड आपका इनहेरेंट आस्क रेट ऑन इक्विटी इंक्रीजेस. ठीक है, क्या होता है कि आप का कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल है और आप उसके ऊपर एक सर्टेन रिटर्न बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. आप अभी 15% से खुश हैं, गवर्नमेंट के एक एक्शन की वजह से वो 13.5 हो जाएगा. ठीक है, तो आपका एक्सपेक्टेड रिटर्न जैसे ही कम हुआ तो आपका रिस्क एपिटाइट भी कम होगा. ठीक है, एंड आप लोअर पी दोगे एक बार तो फिर देन द ग्रोथ हैज टू कंपनसेट फॉर दैट लोअर आरओआई ऑफ योर इन्वेस्टमेंट. तो एक बार तो आएगा प्रॉब्लम. Morning.
So, I was just referring to your earlier response in regards to trends. So, you're saying service sector will flourish and it will be resulting in a better GDP and growth and all that. But how do you see technology and AI, ML, all of that snatching away the gains because of this? Do you see an impact on, because India is a very labor intensive market, is all of that going to impact the growth because of advent of technology?
देखिए, I have seen these fears while whenever the new technology comes multiple times. Right from 2006-7, when I was a novice and I used to track IT sector, there was a lot of news because उस time था ये आपका ERP boom चल रहा था. तो ERP ऐसे बेचे जाते कि एक बार आप ये लगा लो, उसके बाद आपको ना हायर करने का जरूरत है, ना कुछ और टेक्नोलॉजी लेने का जरूरत है. उसके बाद आ गया क्लाउड. आप सब डेटा क्लाउड पे एक बार डाल दो, सोचने का जरूरत नहीं है. अब आगे एआई. एक बार एआई आ गया तो लोग रखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. बट ऐसा नहीं होता है. ठीक है, बिकॉज क्या होता है, जो मेरा अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, विद एवरी न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी द यूज केसेस मल्टीप्लाई भयंकर तरीके से. आप एआई यूज कर रहे हो या जीपीयू यूज कर रहे हो NVIDIA का, व्हाट इज इट डूइंग? इट इज एनालाइजिंग मोर और फास्टर. इट इज यूजिंग मोर डेटा एंड एनालाइजिंग फास्टर. तो वो डेटा का आप करोगे क्या एनालाइज करके? समबडी, आप एक्शन लोगे ना उस पर. एक्शन कैसे लोगे आप उस पर? यूज केसेस बढ़ते जाते हैं मल्टीफोल्ड्स. सो टेल मी वन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन where one computer came about 20 years ago and they have reduced the number of computers any time in history, a number of IT people in it. It will never happen. That is reason number one. Reason number two is we always think कि एक टेक्नोलॉजी आया पीछे वाली सारी टेक्नोलॉजी गायब हो गई. ऐसा नहीं होता है. There are, and I'm sure talking in Pune, you guys more know technology of how things have happened in last 20 years than me because you've worked in that industry. There are layers of different technology, right? Citigroup, and I was talking to about 5-7 years ago, thanks to a broker, he made me meet somebody who was heading Citigroup ka he was a CTO, global head of technology. They work on 7 layers of technology starting from 1987. You know, highest per जो आपका FTE बोलते हैं, फुल टाइम इक्विवेलेंट चार्जेस, वो किसको देते हैं? पीपल हु अंडरस्टैंड पास्कल एंड कोबोल, बिकॉज उनके कुछ चीजें उस पर चल रही है अभी भी. सो जब नए लेयर्स आते हैं तो पुराने गायब नहीं हो जाते. इवन इट बिकम्स मोर कॉम्प्लिकेटेड एंड यू हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ दैट एज अ सर्विस, राइट? सो आई डोंट बिलीव दैट थिंग्स विल गो अवे. वाइल देखिए, इट इज अ वेरी होमोजेनस टॉक आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. देयर कुड बी अ पॉसिबिलिटी कि वो 100 लोग जो एक सर्टन काम कर रहे हैं उनको प्रॉब्लम आए, लेकिन 200 कोई और काम करने वालों को मिल जाएगा कुछ. सो नेट द कंट्री एड्स 100, but at an individual level, unless you relearn, there could be a problem. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, the session that we talked about was India equity story, and definitely the session, the story looks very promising. We are at the right place, right time for sure. And looking at the numbers that you're saying, we are definitely in a very good growth path. What I also wanted to understand is it's a very good time for us to invest in the Indian market. But what's your take on investing in the foreign markets? And how much should we emphasize on those? Do you think there are emerging markets in the other countries? And what would you recommend? Should we invest there or should we invest in our own country since we have the home advantage?
देखिए, we have the home advantage. Large part of your portfolio should be in India. As I told you, even if you look at very objectively, we are promising the best nominal GDP growth rate, and Indian equities are reflecting that nominal GDP. It's a very sweet spot, right? But as a retail investor, till now, you had only one way to diversify out of India risk, which is gold. Rest everything is related to India. Whatever you have, your house, your equity, your everything. Gold is one thing which is not India risk, because if currency will depreciate, your gold will go up, right? Thankfully, you now have products which offer foreign investments. My personal belief is there is absolutely no sense in investing in other EM. We are already in EM. The good diversification is if you invest in a DM, developed market portfolio, right? From a mutual fund perspective, unfortunately, there is a $7 billion cap by RBI. At the industry level, you cannot have more than $7 billion of investments in overseas equity. That cap has been reached for the last 3-4 years, so we cannot invest as a mutual fund. I don't know vehicles how an individual can invest, but if you are willing to invest 3-4% in developed market equity makes sense. It absolutely makes no sense of investing in EM besides India.
I hope there are all the questions are sorted for the first speaker. Thanks a lot, Sorbh, for enlightening us with the India story. With your presentation, the conviction for India has certainly gone up. They are all investing in India predominantly, but certainly the conviction to put more money has certainly gone up. Thanks a lot for enlightening us. To felicitate you, I would request someone who defines long-term investing, Mr. Sanjay Katti. He is retired from Mercedes at the age of 60, and at age of 67 he recently did Kashmir to Kanyakumari cycling. Last year he also did India West to India East. So I think I would request sir to please give a token of appreciation and thanks to hello. So after the first session, another question: what is something which is common in today's time between a doctor, a software engineer, a chartered accountant, a teacher, a judge, a businessman, and an unemployed person? One common thing, unfortunately, is they all are falling prey to something called as online frauds and scams. To know more about what's happening actually, uh, and to make sure that we don't become part of that fraternity of people who fallen prey to these scams, I would invite someone who works very closely with a lot of investors and fund managers, Mr. Neil Borate. Um, I think a lot of people who are active on social media would certainly know him. He's got a good fan following on Twitter as well as at least LinkedIn. I'm not sure about Instagram and other stuff. Mr. Neil Borate is a deputy editor at Mint newspaper, where he heads the personal finance team. Neil is a graduate in law and economics with a post-graduation diploma in investments from University of Birmingham, UK. He is also passed his CFA level 1. Neil started writing about personal finance in 2016 at Value Research, a mutual fund research portal. After a stint at FinTech, Neil joined Mint in 2019 as a mutual fund reporter. He was made the deputy editor in the year 2022. He's also co-authored a book called The Big Bull of Dalal Street, of course, on the great Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, one of the most successful investors. So over to you, Neil. Please welcome Neil.
Hi everyone. So I think one thing that wasn't mentioned is I'm also a Punekar. I live 3 kilometers from here, so I'm able to walk down from my house at Nurstop. Um, Let me first try and answer some of the questions that were asked of the previous speaker using the fact that I have no skin in the game. I have nothing to sell. So the first question was about mutual funds versus direct stock investing. I just checked the returns of my mutual fund that I invest in. In the past 1 year, it's given 33%. In the past 5 years, it's given 25% CAGR. I don't know how many people can beat that by direct stock investing. I don't expect this to be the return. This is an extraordinary period. But mutual funds have done extremely well for me, for most of you in this room. Second question that was asked was about small case and other such platforms. Um, Now, those platforms are not regulated by SEBI. The past returns that they show are on their own. Mutual fund returns, NAVs are audited and checked, and you have immediate redemption. Plus, when you do direct stocks, when you do something like a small case, you pay tax on every redemption transaction. If there's a profit, you pay tax. If you get dividends in your account, you pay tax. म्युच्युअल फंड मध्ये जर तुम्हाला डिव्हिडंड मिळाला, you do not pay any tax. That return just gets added to the NAV of the fund. Only when you redeem the fund, you pay tax. So there are enormous advantages to investing in mutual funds. I personally do. I tried direct stocks a long time ago, didn't really work for me, and it doesn't work in the long run for most retail investors, most ordinary investors who don't have the time to spend hours and hours in stock research. Bull markets मध्ये sometimes you feel like you're the king because a couple of stocks you pick go up 30, 40, 50%, and your fund is up just 20%, just 20%. So you think, oh, I can do a better job. But that's a function of bull markets. It is not the function of the long-term equity cycle. So with that, we can start with today's topic. Um, so how many of you have received unsolicited messages on WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, any other social media platform? Just receive messages. I'm not saying you got into, right? I've also got them. I've got random people messaging me on all of these social media platforms. And it is really, really hard to make out. Sorry. Yeah, so this is something that Nilesh Shah tweeted. Nilesh Shah is the CEO of Kotak Mutual Fund. And he put out a notice about these Telegram groups that were using the Kotak name. Now, if you see, most of them are really hard to distinguish. They're called things like Kotak Fund 2, Kotak Mutual Fund 123, Kotak Mutual Investment Fund, Kotak Mutual Fund. It all sounds legit, right? It's really hard to tell apart from something called Bhai Love and Bitcoin Trading TM SEBI registered. Those are obvious red flags. Most of us wouldn't fall for that. But other than that, it's all using the Kotak name. And this is happening up and down the country. And there's just no way of telling fact from fiction because you have legitimate organizations whose names are used on legitimate platforms. Like we use WhatsApp, we use all of these other platforms. Some of you might have seen things like this. Usually they are impersonations of high profile people, famous people in finance, offering easy returns, easy money. They are not usually sanctioned by these people. So Rachna Ranade or other influencers in finance, yes, they do a lot of such videos where stocks are discussed. Some of them, frankly, are clickbait. I'm saying this very openly. But I don't think a lot of these are sanctioned by the people who they pretend to be. This is just a rough number of what's happening today in India, the amount of money that's being lost to fraud. So, how do these scams work, right? They play to two of our emotions. One is greed, one is fear, like everything else in finance. And they impersonate sources of authority like mutual funds, like regulators. So this plays to greed, right? 40-50% return. That's what brings people in. And when you have a market which is actually giving you 20-30% return, it seems कि possible है, 40-50%. So this is the modus operandi. They will impersonate. So they will put out ads on Facebook, on YouTube, pretending to be somebody else. And they will ask you, if you click on those links, they will ask you to join WhatsApp or Telegram groups. This is step one, usually. Then on those Telegram or WhatsApp groups, they will start handing out stock tips. And one thing about us, we love stuff for free, right? Including stock tips. Why should we pay for advice when we're getting it free on WhatsApp? So they start handing out that. Then the third thing they do is plant their own people on those groups who start praising the stock tips ki मला इतके returns मिळाले, मी इतकं कमवलं, and so on. That brings social validation. Eventually, they will ask you to download an app. Now, usually the app will be called something very similar to the first slide, Kotak Mutual Investment Fund or Kotak something, which looks very much like the actual Kotak Mutual Fund app or the actual Zerodha app or the actual Upstocks app, whichever broking site you're familiar with. It will be almost impossible to distinguish. There'll be some giveaways, bad grammar, some reviews. But usually we are in a hurry, we get greedy, we don't have the time to look at all this. We miss it. Then they make you do trades and they show you fake profits. Like on the app, you can see that you've got profits. That's entirely fake. It's a fake app. And of course, when you go to withdraw money, there is some reason given, tax bharaycha hai, TDS, something else. And that's when they ask you to pay more money. At that point, if you pay more money, they keep that money also. If you don't pay more money, then they stop responding. Whatever money you invested, that they keep. So this is the typical modus operandi. It's called a pig butchering scam. It originated in China and now mostly run from Southeast Asia, where the first part is called the fattening of the pig. You invest more and more money, thinking you've got more and more returns. The second part is called butchering of the pig, where they stop responding and they keep all the money. This is the second kind of scam, which is fear, right? Every day the newspapers are filled with CBI, ED, other investigations. It seems very plausible. You get a phone call, usually early in the morning, uh, calling from Mumbai Customs, calling from Revenue, calling from ED. Packages come in your name, drugs have been found, currency has been found, contraband has been found. They ask you to join a Skype, not a Skype call, join you to join a virtual meet. Then they start asking you questions. They put you, um, they put you under what's called digital house arrest. They say stay in front of the computer. You can't leave the computer, and keep getting information, keep making you afraid, get you into that zone where you're ready to do anything just to get out of that situation. And eventually, as is so common in India, you will ask for settlement, you will ask for some relief, and they will, officer will so called, settle the case. They'll take your money. Just another example of how this works. And it's very hard to recover the money because by the time you realize it's a fraud, you file a complaint with the police. Even if they do register your FIR, the money has been withdrawn from whichever account it's been transferred to, or it's been transferred to some third account. So these are what are usually called mule accounts. तिसऱ्याच कुठल्या तरी माणसाचं account असतं. Often it's your own account which is a mule account. So you will get money from some other person they've scammed. And then when the cops freeze the account, it's your account that gets frozen, which is third level crazy. Like it's not only so it's very hard to recover the money. If anyone has been through the situation, please share your experience. If you've managed to recover some money, please tell us how. But this is the usual case. Um, then, of course, there are the run-of-the-mill impersonation frauds. Vinita Singh, if you've seen Shark Tank, is quite famous. She put out a tweet where people claimed that she was dead and had to clarify she was not. Um, so, so it's all over. It's happening all over. To safeguard yourself, so the first thing you can do is make sure it's a regulated entity. This is very hard to figure out because a lot of people who look legitimate are not actually regulated. A lot of people on YouTube, famous YouTubers, influencers, they are not SEBI registered. They are handing out stock tips every day without a SEBI license. They're using a loophole in the law. How do you find out somebody's registered? Ask for their registration number. So if that person is an investment advisor, they would have a SEBI registration number. If they are a mutual fund distributor, they would have an AMFI registration number. It's called an ARN number. And you can cross-check this against those respective websites. This is just one way. This may not be enough because they might be using an actual person's actual registration number. Second way is old school. Meet them in person. If it's a big amount of money, don't be so quick to transfer it online to somebody who you've never met. And if you can, try and ask them for actual references of people that you know. And obviously, the last one, most of you here would know if the returns are too good to be true, then it will be a scam. That's it. Thank you very much. Open to questions. Not just on this, but on anything on personal finance. Very happy to discuss. I am available also on social media. Happy to answer.
I recently got to know something very interesting. You said that they create WhatsApp groups, and many people who they know they are praising you, seemingly like they are other investors. What I got to know recently is that 99% of the numbers, except for you in the group, are all fake. They are only for chat box. They act like only chatting machines. So if you call them, no one will even pick up the call. So firstly, the number lagega bhi nahi. So that level of technology is being used to fool people. So yeah, if someone wants to share experience, are there any questions? Yes.
I would like to share a practical scenario that has happened last 1 month.
Yes.
So there's a senior citizen. There's a senior citizen. Now, if the senior citizens are retired, they have ample free time. So what he did was he was surfing Facebook, and like you mentioned, they send links or like they impersonate people. And there was this case where they were impersonating Choice Securities, which is a very good and a very renowned firm in Mumbai which deals into stock market. And they were sharing links to join groups. So the initial modus operandi for them was they shared links and they said that we'll teach you how to read charts. Okay, so a lot of time, a lot of brokers or markets have these charts, and you really don't know what these ups and downs mean or how to read them, how to interpret them. So the starting point was to teach them how to read charts. Then the next action which they took was they gave you tips which you should be using and investing through your own demat account. And there were tips like where you will surely earn returns. So that is how you lure or you fall prey to them, said, okay, now I'm actually earning returns out of it. The next step they do is, like you mentioned, they send you a fake app link and they ask you to join the app. Now in this classic case, the symbol of the app was exactly Choice Securities. They impersonated the MD over there. And like you mentioned, you should be checking the SEBI numbers or the ARN numbers. This person probably had a super mind. He impersonated all of those. So even the SEBI registrations were impersonated, and so that everybody would believe, what they did was they sent an invite for a Zoom meeting. On the Zoom meeting, they showed them the office. They showed them that there is this Choice Securities board, there are all those certificates which are there hanging on the wall, and then they said, showed that they are there, MDs are signing contracts for dealing into primary market. So that is how it all started, and then the modus operandi is exactly like him, that they share tips. They have got a WhatsApp group, we just got around 150 people, but all of them are bot numbers. So when actually that investor decided that okay, he had invested close to 16 lakhs and the portfolio was showing 54 lakhs, he had a temptation to withdraw at least it's an Indian mentality, right? Let's withdraw the capital we deal or invest with whatever profit we've earned. So when the withdrawal happened, that is the time he mentioned that the person who in the chat box mentioned that you'll have to pay tax. And being a consultant, a chartered accountant for him, he came to us and he mentioned that he's asking for so much of tax. And we told him that what he would do is max a TDS. He can't ask you to deposit an advance tax in January when the due date is March. So that was the trigger to know that it was a financial fraud. The immediate action which we took was FIR. Right, these days comes in a very later stage when it comes to cybercrime. The cybercrime department has their own website. What you need to immediately do, first thing, is register a complaint on the cyber website. You have to mention them the bank account numbers where you have transferred funds and your bank account from where you have transferred funds, and immediately the process of blocking the funds go. So till date, when you register your email ID on a mobile number, you keep getting messages to the extent the money has been traced. A lot of times it is observed that this money gets converted into crypto and is sent out of India. The government or the cyber team can trace these funds only to the extent if they are in India. The moment these get converted into crypto, there is no way that the police can even trace such kind of funds. After you log in the complaint on cyber, then you visit the cybercrime police. They will register an FIR for you, which is then goes to the local jurisdictional police station for verification, and then your lawyer needs to file a complaint in the court to recover at least to the extent the amount is blocked.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody? Yeah.
To be one of the victims whom the third party would have transferred. In his case, he was on the other hand side also. So when there was some money which was transferred to him, it was actually from somebody else's fraud, and his bank account also got locked to that extent of that amount. So the victim need not always be the culprit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's really hard to get your own bank account unfrozen. Okay. Anyone else has got experience to share or any questions? Yep, one question.
So I just want to share one, like she shared. I'm a chartered accountant. A few days back, through one of my insurance agent, I got a contact of one client, and he also mentioned the same way. So he got a message that you need to pay 25 lakhs in the stock market, primary market, within 5 days to settle this transaction. And if you don't do this, then your account will be blocked. So he already invested 25 lakhs, and then he need to withdraw the taxes demanding almost of 25 lakhs. I asked the same question: how the tax is demanded? Because either the TDS will be deducted, or you have to pay tax directly to the government, not to such any entity. So same way.
Yeah, it's very common. Literally, any day you open Times of India, you'll see the crime pages no longer have the routine. Sorry, one more question.
So in fact, recently the district court judge was scammed by a scamster saying that he's a high court judge and he needs money. Just last week. So yes, Chandan.
Every week I get added to a group which is into cryptocurrency, and the moment I'm added, I have to report it as fake and something like that. But what's the modus operandi of this? Every week I'm getting something.
So that's even scarier. There was a detailed investigation done by one of the news portals where they gave Indians fake job offers in Southeast Asia, then get them kidnapped, use them in these call centers to target other Indians. Most of these are run from Southeast Asia now. Myanmar, correct.
You may get a call from a GST department saying you have we see that you have done a lot of GST transactions, but we want to investigate, we want to come to your home, see whether the GST number has been put on the place, etc. etc. Most of those are fakes. They will tell if you don't do it in 24 hours, we'll block your GST numbers, your credits would be stopped, etc. Practically, this is happening. That's one thing. Second, very common, what I have seen, the numbers are already blocked and you get a message 16,000 rupees transfer. The WhatsApp comes from your known people saying transfer 16,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees, as the case may be. And the messages is very well drafted from your personal known people. So just suggestion, don't pay on those, because in last 3 months, 5 to 10 of my relatives has faced this problem, or one or two transactions has already happened. So just don't transfer monies only on the messages from your relatives, etc. I mean, etc. Don't do that. These were two things which are practically seen. Because I have a GST number in my wife's name, I got a call. Fortunately, it was my number which was given in my wife's GST account, so I could still manage.
Could figure it out.
From last 1.5 or 2 months, I am going through this kind of problems. One of my sales girl, who is looking after sales, she received a call that your dad told me to transfer. Actually, I am trying to transfer money in your dad's account, but it is not happening. So he told me that to transfer in your account. Okay. So in the time she was supposed to call, she received a message that 20,000 is been transferred to your account. And immediately she opened the app and she saw that 20,000 is been transferred, but not to the account, it was a SMS. And again she received a call that we have transferred 2,000 extra, it was supposed to be 18,000. So you transfer me 2000 back. Well, it was surprising that 2000 actually immediately got deducted from her account without doing anything. So that is one point, and she was surprised. Then she filed a complaint on the cyber this thing website, but till today she has not received any kind of a reply. So this thing is also happening, but without opening the app. Also, she just saw the message, and meantime she opened her Paytm app or something like that, and that amount got transferred. And second thing, I received a call like Mandachali is over here. So what happened? Something around 24 years back. Like all these years, I have taken so much of loans, housing loans and all. So it was a case of SBI. So I received a call one day that you had taken a credit card in 2000, okay, and you are supposed to pay some errors are there. So now the outstanding amount is something around 3 lakh rupees. So I told don't have anything. So you could have registered on the CIBIL. So you can check it is on the CIBIL. So I just opened this thing, Google Pay, and I searched over there. So it was showing in the CIBIL. So I was surprised how did this come? And immediately after 2 days, I had a contact list. Like I am a member of BNI Tekaya. So to at least 6 or 7 people, there was a call from somewhere else, maybe from Bihar or something, that you must be knowing Jitendra Deshmukh. He has taken 3 lakh rupees from us and he is not paying, so you pay. So there were around, like Malayachal received a call, and it was only to those members of Trikaya only. So my data book or maybe database must have got hacked, and they started receiving call. Immediately after 2 days, nobody took action. One of my friend Prashant Zarkar, he is such a humorous guy. He actually like recorded. Well, okay, you give me the bank details. I will transfer the money in your account. Okay, you give me the details of the bank. But somehow that person was not actually ready to give any bank account. अरे बोले जितेंद्र देशमुख को पैसे देना है ना, तो आप बोल रहे हो 3 लाख रुपया वो देना है, तो आप बैंक अकाउंट दो, मैं ट्रांसफर करता हूँ. नहीं आप उनको बोलो ना मुझे पैसा ट्रांसफर करने के लिए. So these were the things which were going on. But somehow actually didn't. Nobody paid and nobody had. But Malayachal actually he received almost 70 calls in a day. So somehow the other way the people are trying to harass.
I also got like 30, 40 calls.
Achha, you also
I started blocking them.
So there were around 8 to 10 people from our BNI Trikaya, they were receiving this kind of a calls. So I don't know how this happened. So now immediately after like 4 or 5 days it stopped and nobody has received a call.
Any complaints about people who are giving illegal stock tips? There is a website of SEBI called Scores, SCORES. You can register a complaint there about any kind of financial wrongdoing that you see.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Neil, for sharing your experience. And if you also are aware of Komal, if you are aware of the website where the complaint needs to be done, which is that website? Cybercrime. CRIME or S? Crimes or crime? Cybercrime? Okay, sure.
Professor in MIT, and he had come to complain that there is some person who has opened a bank account in his name in Gurgaon. He is totally unaware, he's never visited any place in Gurgaon, but somebody used his PAN card and Aadhaar card to open a bank account in Gurgaon and do all fraud transactions through that account, and a notice went to this MIT of professor that you have to pay 1 crore of money to these listed people. And he had come to say that I don't have a bank account. And that time the crime people, the police commissioner came to a conclusion that we generally tend to share PAN cards and Aadhaar card screenshots on WhatsApp. So somebody had used those 2 documents to open a bank account. A lot of times there are these bank managers have targets in March to open bank accounts, right? And they are also party to these frauds. So you should be very cautious when you are sharing your personal documents over WhatsApp. Always share it on a secured way, and you need to ensure that the person whom you are sharing with, just call and check whether he's the intended person who will send you that message to share a copy of your PAN card and Aadhaar card.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Komal, for.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Thank you, Neil. So I think one coming. जो नील ने बताया सिर्फ उतने ही चीजें नहीं है, या मे बी व्हाट ऑडियंस शेयर्ड इतने ही नहीं है. देयर आर न्यू थिंग्स which will keep on coming. what is important for us to know is that anything which looks too good to be true, yeah, something which looks very easy, I think one should not fall prey to it. Probably go to Google, directly go to the respective banks or that entity's site to make the complete the KYC process. I think, as I said, there are so many things which are coming up. So, with this, we end the second speaker session. While we move to the third and the last session for the day, uh, debt funds. So, well, debt funds have always been a bit complicated for the retail investors. They're not as easy to understand as equity funds, right? FDs, we all love FDs. We've been doing FDs for ages, but FDs have unfortunately never met our investors' expectation, the desired returns. The attractive debentures, what were there pre 2017-18 or in those times, a lot of them defaulted, and a lot of investors who thought that a AA plus, a AAA rated company was good, unfortunately a lot of them lost money because the promoter had siphoned off the money. So that's where in 2022 we tied up with a company which had by that time already revolutionized the fixed income investing for everyone. Yes, it's a P2P platform, LiquiLoans. To know completely why P2P was introduced by them, how it operates, how they manage risk, and what are the RBI regulations around it. I want to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Gautam Adhukia. Gautam Adhukia is a co-founder and CEO of LiquiLoans since the beginning, that is 2018. He is a ex-co-founder of India's largest furniture and appliance leasing platform, Rento Mojo, which I believe they've already exited at a good valuation. He was heading finance, strategy, product, category, and digital marketing at Rento Mojo. He has previously worked in companies like IIFL Wealth and Housing.com. He has done his internship in RBI and RBS in the past. Mr. Gautam Adhukia has done his PG DBM from IIM Calcutta, and he is a CFA charter holder. Welcome, Gautam. Over to you.
Inviting us. We'll start with a short video. How many of you all know about the P2P asset class itself? And how many of you all would be invested into LiquiLoans? Okay, so no more people have invested into LiquiLoans and know about P2P asset class. So I think that's the purpose of this session, to just give you all a better understanding. What I'll try to do is keep it a little bit simple and basic. And any questions that you have on the technicality side, we'll probably take in the Q&A for the benefit of the broader audience. So just quickly about us, right? Who are we? We are India's #1 P2P lending platform. P2P lending is a concept which originated in the US and UK around 2005-2006. RBI introduced the guidelines for how P2P NBFCs. So P2P is a subcategory within the NBFC segment. RBI introduced the guidelines on October 4, 2017 on how such firms would operate in India. They would need a license and will need to be regulated by the central bank. And there were instructions on how should you operate, what are the things that you're allowed to do, what are the things that you're not allowed to do. We got our license in 2018, and since then we've become one of the larger players in the industry. We are one of the only platforms which has tried to get their portfolio rated. So P2P, unfortunately, we don't have a proper rating for the P2P industry as of now, because it's a very, very new and nascent industry. But we tried to get the underlying portfolio of loans rated so that investors like you all could get a sense of what is the risk in this asset class and with a particular platform. And very proud to say we've got a great track record in the last 6 years in terms of meeting the indicative yields that investors have earned on the platform. So why will P2P as an asset class actually work in a country like India? Like a lot of you all already know, right? We're becoming great investors. SIP ka volume has crossed 20,000 crores on a monthly basis, but we've historically always been great savers, right? So to add some nuance to what Sorbh said, historically apna per capita income was low. In spite of that, households were always saving, right? My mom, my dad, no matter what the income level, savings acha karte the. And how does that reflect into the broader numbers? If you look at this, which is where do we invest our capital? Because we've been very, very conscious savers. Kafi paisa FD mein laga dete. Between all the asset classes, the largest asset class still is fixed income.
And within fixed income also, or within the financial assets mix, which is non only financial assets, 3/4 of the money historically has gone into fixed income products. Now, when it comes to fixed income products, why do people firstly invest into fixed income, and what is it that they look for? So first and foremost, जो most important factor है fixed income product में अगर कोई भी पैसे लगा रहा है, he is looking for safety of capital. Come what may, I should not lose my capital. I am okay to earn a lower return in lieu of the safety that a fixed income product gives me. Secondly, volatile नहीं होना चाहिए. Equity can go up, can go down in the short term, in the long term. My fixed income product ideally should not have a lot of volatility. It should continuously keep growing, albeit at a slower pace. But कभी भी ये नहीं होना चाहिए कि suddenly there's a 2%, 4%, 5% or 10% loss in any fixed income product that I have invested into. Thirdly, like Swapnilji mentioned, right, today what's happening is most of the fixed income products today are unable to beat inflation. So one of the key things, whenever you're saving capital, whenever you're saving your money and investing for the long run, or even for the short run, is कि I should not lose value of the money. If inflation 7% hai and my product is giving me 5% return, effectively the return on my money is negative 2%, because next year I will be able to buy only or 2% lower number of quantity of items, because inflation has gone up by 7%, whereas my return is just 5%. Now, why is this even more important right now? If some of you all might remember, back in the 90s, early 2000s, FD rates themselves were double digit. तो कोई और प्रोडक्ट देखते ही नहीं थे इन्वेस्टर, ना जरूरत पड़ती थी. जब FD rates अच्छे थे and they were beating inflation, a lot of the money would flock towards FDs because it was safe also, generating a good return also. But over the last 2.5 decades, FD rates have continuously come down from 12-13% to probably about 5% a year and a half back before RBI hiked rates. And abhi also, as and when rates come down in the next 12 to 18 months, they will go back to the 5 to 6.5% range. When that is the case and inflation continues to remain high, like I said, your investment into fixed income products is generating a negative real return. Not to say that this product or asset class will vanish. People will keep investing into FD because it is the safest product out there in the market. But people will also want some other product which gives them a kicker on their return. So they may invest 90 rupees in the traditional products, but for that 5, 10, 15%, depending on your risk appetite, people will want a product जो थोड़ा extra return बनाता है as compared to the safest product. So that is what led to the birth of P2P, not just in the global economy, but also in the Indian economy. So back in 2017-18. And just to give you an understanding of what is P2P, right? P2P is, from a principles perspective, a very, very simple concept. जब हम बैंक में जाके, and I'm not comparing the risk here, but just trying to give an example for you all to understand. When we go to a bank, do an FD, वही FD का पैसा bank actually lends forward to individual borrowers like you and me for a car loan, home loan, personal loan, credit card, and to companies for working capital, project financing, their short-term and long-term borrowing requirements. And the third borrower obviously for banks is government, but I've not covered that here because that's a regulatory requirement. Now P2P is exactly the same concept, removing the intermediary, which is a bank or an NBFC in this case, where you as an investor or a lender in our parlance can lend money directly to the end borrower. Now, because there is one less intermediary and we operate purely as a digital platform, the cost comes down and there's a possibility of you earning a slightly higher return and also the end borrower getting a slightly lower return. The other advantage here, as you can see, is because the regulatory guidelines restrict any lending through a P2P platform to a borrower beyond 10 lakh of rupees. No single borrower can borrow more than 10 lakh rupees. So practically कोई company borrow नहीं करना चाहेगी P2P platform पे. Only individuals will borrow and they will also borrow a small sum. So essentially the underlying risk that you're taking is of primarily retail borrowers. And जो historically data कहता है for large banks, large NBFCs, including the best names SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Axis, and so on, corporate borrowing tends to have higher risk in terms of gross NPAs as compared to retail borrowings. जो आप लोग जो listed market देखते होगे, you would have seen Bajaj always gets a premium because they have a predominantly retail book. Same used to be the case for HDFC because they had a retail book. NPAs were highly predictable. They would get a premium valuation from the market as well. So the concept of P2P is, just to summarize, very simple. Individual lenders can lend to individual people or multiple individual people on the other side, removing the intermediary, bringing down the cost, increasing the potential return. Obviously, the risk also slightly goes higher because in FD, a bank is the counterparty who says, come what may, I will make you the principal plus interest payment. Here, if a large number of borrowers default, your returns also might get impacted. Now, how does it work? So it's not as simple as sending money. जैसे cyber crime का example था session था right before this. You don't directly lend money to hundreds of borrowers yourself and keep calling them up and asking them to make a payment back. All of this is done through a very regulated mechanism which RBI has again prescribed. So any and every money that you invest goes through a specific designated escrow bank account. उस escrow bank account, that escrow bank account is managed by a trustee. So we as the platform do not have operational rights on the escrow bank account that we're operating through. Let's say the account is with ICICI Bank. Swapnil invests 1 lakh into ICICI Bank. If and when there are borrowers on the platform who match Swapnil's risk appetite, we will instruct the trustee, these are the borrowers, can you please disburse money to these individual borrowers, and some part of his capital will be disbursed to those borrowers. Now, as and when those borrowers start making a repayment, money will come back into the escrow account, and from there, if and when money is due back to Swapnil, he will be able to withdraw from the same escrow bank account. So at no point of time is there any counterparty risk to the P2P platform. Let's say a P2P platform were to cease to exist also, all of your money is in an escrow account. This construct is similar to what happens in a mutual fund. When you are investing with a AMC, पैसा उनके अकाउंट में नहीं जाता है, पैसा goes into a separate designated bank account, वहां से stocks या bonds purchase होते हैं, and money also comes back from the same account back to you. So in a way, as you see the dotted line, this structure is ring fenced from the entity that is operating this.
Before that, if you can just throw some light on what's an escrow account, what makes it safe?
Sure. So escrow account generally is a special purpose account. If you remember back in the days, IPO के लिए भी एक escrow account होता था. Each company which was going for an IPO would open a specific designated escrow account. This is dissimilar to a current account that a company would open. उसका एक special purpose होता था, which is a agreement, so to say, between you and the bank that this account has been opened specifically for this purpose. जो भी इसमें पैसा जाएगा will be as per the original agreement between the two counterparties, which is the entity opening the account and the bank in this case, and money cannot be used for any other purpose. For example, in the IPO, which some of the people might understand, पैसा उसमें जाता था because hundreds of investors might subscribe to the IPO. The subscription money from those investors would lie in the escrow account till you got allocation. क्योंकि कई बार IPO ओवर सब्सक्राइब हो जाता है. If let's say 100 rupees का IPO है, 300 rupees का subscription आ गया, so that 200 has to be refunded to those investors who did not get a subscription. Once allocation is done to the 100 investors who got the allocation, that money can then move to the current account of the entity and they can start using it. Similarly here, RBI has prescribed an escrow bank account where we can't use this account for our normal purpose. जब हम, just to draw a parallel, if let's say I take a NCD of Mahindra Finance, I transfer 100 rupees or 1000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees to their current account. The moment they get the money, they can start using the money after let's say a 5 or 7 day period. Their disbursements can also happen from the same account. They can do their expenses, salary payment, lease payments, rental payments, any other vendor payments from the same account. So they are free to use the money in the manner that they desire once it's gone into the account. In this case, the escrow account is a different account from our current account. All the money in the escrow account is your money, all other lenders' money. उसमें से दो ही काम हो सकते हैं. Money can go back or money can be disbursed to the borrower for any loan that he has taken, and as and when a borrower makes a repayment, money will go back to lenders like yourself. Any expenses that we as a company have cannot be done through the escrow account. The only money that we can withdraw from the escrow account with the permission of the trustee, which is again ICICI trustee in our case, is our fees. Once we withdrawn the fees into our current account, from that current account we can make all of our expenses. So tomorrow if there is something untoward to happen to the company, your money continues to remain in a separate escrow account which is ring fenced from what has happened to us as a company. If there's any confusion, I'll just take a quick question on this and then move on with the presentation. But ये industry बनी कैसे, right? If I go back to 7 or 8 years back when P2P was unregulated, there was one very important constraint to the growth of the P2P industry जो आपके mind में भी होएगा, right? अगर मैं बाकी लोगों को दे रहा हूँ, strangers को पैसा दे रहा हूँ, वो क्यों वापस देंगे? They might be very risky in nature. The loans are also, by the way, unsecured in nature. So there are 2 or 3 elements of risk that will all come into your mind. But let me sort of give me 2 minutes to eliminate some of these notions, right? One of the first challenges was P2P lending platform पे borrow करने वही आएगा जिसको कहीं और लोन नहीं मिलेगा. And this was generally true about 7 or 8 years back, right? Go back into a pre-Geo era, someone going online for applying for a loan was typically either of the two segments, right? एक जिसने बैंक से लोन ले लिया है, डिफॉल्ट ऑलरेडी कर दिया बैंक या एनबीएफसी से, अब उसको नया लोन नहीं मिल रहा है, या एक जो बिकॉज ऑफ हिज इनकम, बिकॉज ऑफ हिज एबिलिटी इज नॉट इवन एलिजिबल फॉर अ लोन फ्रॉम अ बैंक और एन एनबीएफसी. दोज काइंड ऑफ कस्टमर्स वर कमिंग. अब उससे क्या होता है, एक नेगेटिव सर्कल बन रहा था. लो क्वालिटी बॉलर्स आ रहे थे. अब ऑब्वियसली लो क्वालिटी बॉलर्स है तो उनका एनपीए हाई होएगा. नाउ बिकॉज देयर एनपीए वाज हाई, the perceived risk of lenders or the actual risk for lenders was also quite high. क्योंकि रिस्क ज्यादा था, लेंडर्स बोलते थे मेरे को रिटर्न ज्यादा चाहिए, रिटर्न ज्यादा चाहिए तो लेंडिंग रेट ज्यादा होएगा. अब लेंडिंग रेट अगर ज्यादा है तो अगेन इवन वर्स क्वालिटी बॉलर्स आएंगे, राइट? बिकॉज if someone like you wants a loan, most likely you will not need a loan, but अगर आपको चाहिए भी, you will go to a good quality bank and say I will negotiate on rates because there are 10 banks who are willing to give me a loan. Only bad quality borrowers or low quality borrowers will say I'm willing to pay a 24, 28, 30% kind of ROI on my loan. So to break this negative feedback loop was extremely important for the P2P industry to flourish in India. And this was one of the gaps that we identified. How can we turn this around? If we are able to get good quality borrowers. Good quality borrowers अगर आ गए, उनका NPA लो होएगा. NPA अगर उनका लो है, तो risk for lenders on the platform will also be low. If the risk is low, like you all do with FD, the same investor might not be satisfied with a 14% return in an equity fund, but will be comfortable parking his money in FD for 6%. That is the risk differential that you are paying as an investor for the safety of principal and capital. Now, because perceived or actual risk is low, you are willing to lend at a lower rate. अब lower rate पे अगर हम पैसा दे रहे हैं तो अच्छे quality borrowers automatically come. So this becomes a positive flywheel effect where good quality borrowers eventually attract more good quality borrowers in a circular manner. Now, to understand what are good quality borrowers, let us take a step back. कि how are individual retail borrowers evaluated? Companies में आपको शायद idea होगा, right? There are AAA companies, AA plus companies, BBB companies, B companies, and C companies. So, say all of these rating agencies give a rating to any company that is wanting to borrow either from banks or from the bond market. Similarly, for individual borrowers, there are two aspects of risk: ability of borrowers and intent of borrowers. Ability कैसे देखते हैं? Ability is basic nothing but your monthly income. So if I just broadly categorize the pyramid, it will be HNIs who generally don't need funding. उनको लोन का जरूरत नहीं होता है. They have enough surplus capital. Then there will be an affluent category, right? Again, this category generally on a going concern basis does not need a loan, but they might have a Amex card or a Citi card just from a convenience perspective. The third category is the large middle class that this country has, which is people who are aspirational. For their day-to-day expenses, generally they may not need a loan, but कुछ purchase करना है, be it car, be it house, be it a bike, be it a consumer durable, they will sometimes require a loan. The fourth and fifth is primarily in tier 3 and the rural areas where people might be of different income and within income brackets. They will again need a loan for different purposes. Microfinance will solve the need for starting a business. Then there could be someone like Shriram who's giving a loan for purchasing a second-hand commercial vehicle for someone who wants to run his business. So this on the ability side. Intent is again very simple. So intent is a rating. I presume most of you all will be familiar with the concept of CIBIL score or bureau score. So most of these bureaus give a score ranging between 300 to 900 for individual borrowers. So 300 to 600 are considered to be subprime borrowers. आपने सुना है 2007 में subprime crisis हुआ था in the US, where a lot of lending was made to people who had low intent to repay back. 600 to 700 are considered to be near prime, मतलब almost prime borrowers है, but they are somewhere in the middle category. And 700 to 900 are considered to be prime borrowers who have demonstrated a very good track record over a period of 3, 4, 5 years, where they have repaid back multiple loans. So it takes a certain amount of time to get to a 700 plus score, because the bureaus will, if you take a small loan of 15,000 rupees, they may not feel confident enough to give you a 700 plus score. Now, where do we focus, right? I mentioned we try to get good quality borrowers to break that circle. So our focus is on people who have high intent and are in the affluent and aspirational category, who generally don't need a loan for day-to-day expenses, but might need a loan for a specific large ticket size purchase that they are making. Now again, घूम फिर के question वही आ गया कि how do we source these borrowers? वो आएंगे क्यों हमारे पास? If there is a good borrower, someone like you, most of you all in the audience, you will say, I'll go to my bank. उनके प्री अप्रूव लिमिट होता है, 10 बार मेरे को कॉल आते हैं इन अ वीक की हमारे से लोन ले लीजिए, क्रेडिट कार्ड इज प्री अप्रूव्ड, व्हाई वुड आई कम टू अ P2P platform? So the answer was very simple. Instead of them coming to us, we will actually reach out to them. So we will go to borrowers through a no cost kind of model which is very similar to probably the best NBFC in the country, based right out of Pune that we have, right? Bajaj Finance. They've innovated one of the best things in financial services that I can think of for the last 10 to 15 years, no cost EMI model. No cost में someone like you also might be tempted कि I'm going to buy a phone, मैंने मन बना लिया है, I'm going to swipe my credit card or my debit card, but when I go to the store, they say why don't you convert it into a no cost EMI? Now Swapnil will tell you कि आपको अगर मिल रहा है, park that money, park that 80,000 into a liquid fund, earn 4-5% over the next 10 months. So your cost of acquiring that phone actually comes down. So it sometimes might be financially savvy to actually take a loan when the loan is available on a no cost EMI basis. So this model allowed us to source good quality borrowers, people who are not borrowing because they needed money, they were planning to make a purchase, but no cost पे loan मिल गया है, 0% interest पे loan मिल गया, तो then some of them are tempted or willing to take that loan. Now, in which sectors do we give this no cost EMI? Bajaj Finance, again, most of you all would know, gives it across sectors, the largest segment being consumer durables, phone, washing machine, laptop, TV, fridge, and so on. But we didn't enter into those segments initially. The segments that we entered into are the following four that you see. First is upskilling education. किसी ने अगर अपना ग्रेजुएशन कर लिया है, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन भी कई बार कर लिया है, is working in a job already. Now he wants to go to the next level, take another upskilling course. Say someone is in the tech field right now, wants to learn the next language of coding. Someone who's in data science, बोलते हैं आजकल AI ML बहुत चल रहा है, let me learn this because this is the future. A lot of people in finance, right, will take a CFA or will do a CFA course. So both for the fees as well as for the coaching that you might take for CFA, we've got options available. Similarly, someone who's in marketing might want to do a digital marketing course. So what is the benefit of all of this, right? The best benefit is all of these use cases are great use cases. कोई already कमा रहा है, he wants to upskill himself so that either he gets a better job or earns more in the future. Now the likelihood of these quality of borrowers, right, who is studying even after his post-graduation defaulting is quite low. Second category is discretionary healthcare. Someone who's going to a VLCC, doctor, batra for a discretionary purpose. He does not have a heart problem, lung problem, knee problem, which needs immediate attention. If I want a hair transplant or a cosmetic treatment, or I want to preserve the stem cells of a recently born child, all of these are purchases that you will make if you have the ability. You will not go out of your way, take a loan and consume these services. Now at the point of sale, when the customer gets a no-cost EMI loan, he again is tempted to go ahead with this. Then we are one of the back-end partners for a lot of the fintech NBFCs that you might have heard of. These fintech NBFCs or fintech players work in different segments and we partner with them to source borrowers. The fourth segment is home decor, live space, design cafe, जो organized player हैं. अगर आप अपना modular kitchen करवा रहे हैं, you are getting a room renovated, these are slightly higher ticket size purchases. Even if I have the ability, most likely I will save up, but even if I have the ability, 4 लाख पे अगर कोई no cost EMI loan दे रहा है, तो a lot of the customers are tempted to again take a loan. So all of these segments allow us to actually get very good quality borrowers. Now further, how do we minimize the risk, right? So let's come to the company side first. Not every person who applies for a loan will get the loan. तो अगर in services के through भी आ रहे हैं, customers are of good ability, high intent, उसके बाद भी 1 out of 2 borrowers or 1 out of 3 borrowers or 2 out of 3 borrowers will likely get rejected because these are almost instantaneous loans. Anyone who's gone to a Chroma, you will see कि वो आपसे 2-3 डिटेल 4 डिटेल लेता है, 2 मिनट के अंदर अंदर बोल देता है whether you will get a loan or not. Because the decision making is so instant, the rejection rate is also quite high. So we will approve even within these categories only the best quality of borrowers. Now how do we do this? Obviously over the last 7 years we built a very strong backend system which is able to underwrite borrowers in almost 30 seconds. Evaluate all of the factors that are necessary for any bank or NBFC to understand before giving out a loan. All of those factors are evaluated and within generally 5 to 7 minutes, including manual underwriting, we are able to communicate back to the dealer as well as the borrower whether the loan is approved or declined. So system driven as well as manual underwriting makes it very robust for us. And eventually if 100 loan देंगे तो ऐसा नहीं कि all of the 100 borrowers will repay back on time and all of the EMIs will come back on time. There will be certain instances, 5%, 7% cases जहाँ NASH bounce हो जाएगा and we will have to call them to recover the money. So for that we've got a 60-member collections team in-house which continuously keeps following up with borrowers who have delayed or defaulted in the past, and eventually for 30, 60, 90 days we will keep following up with them. After 90 days we will outsource the case to a collection or legal agency who will then do the necessary legal proceedings to recover money from the borrowers. Now let's come to the investor side. For people like you who are coming onto the platform and lending money on the platform, how do we minimize this? First way we do it is give an option of auto lending, where even if you're investing 50,000 of rupees, that money does not go to a single borrower. Now, what is the risk with a single borrower? It's a 100% concentration risk. If he pays, you make the full return. If he does not, you lose the entire principal. So, firstly, money is diversified across 200 to 300 borrowers. Now, you compare this to most of the other asset classes out there, right? Diversification level is at least 4x, 5x, 7x as compared to any other product that you're investing into today. What happens when you're investing across 200 plus borrowers? Your exposure to one borrower is less than 0.5%. 1 लाख रुपए अगर डालें, मैक्सिमम लेंडिंग टू वन borrower is 500 रुपए. सो अगर कोई डीले करता है, डिफॉल्ट भी करता है, तो इम्पैक्ट टू योर लेंडिंग ऑन द प्लेटफॉर्म इज एक्सट्रीमली लिमिटेड. एंड एज यू stay long on the platform, that number keeps increasing. 200 will become 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. So your exposure to one borrower will keep dropping from 0.5% to 0.2% over the period of time. The third way we minimize risk is, unlike a personal loan, let's say if I take a personal loan from ICICI Bank, I may give whatever reason to the bank कि मैंने home renovation के लिए loan लिया. But once the money is in my bank account, I can use it for whatever purpose I desire. And there is no way the bank can track what am I doing with that money. In this case, money is actually disbursed to the dealer directly. What is the advantage of that? जिसका भी intent खराब है, whoever wants to cheat us as a company, he will never come to our platform, because even after applying from the platform, getting an approval, he does not get a single rupee into his bank account. जो पूरा पैसा है डीलर को या मर्चेंट को जाता है, because he is the one who is bearing the subvention on behalf of the borrower for us to earn our interest rate. Because of that, anyone who has a bad intent will not come onto the platform, because किसी का 700 प्लस का स्कोर है, मुश्किल से बना है, अब वो आके 50,000 का लोन ले जिसमें उसको 1 रुपया भी नहीं मिला, इनफैक्ट 10-20,000 रुपए का डाउन पेमेंट लगा, एंड हिज सिविल स्कोर गोस फॉर अ टॉस, potentially we can file under section 25 a FIR against him, because the Nash bounce is equivalent to a check bounce when it comes to the eyes of the law. So the incentive for someone to take a loan and default is very limited. And finally, we've got one of the most investor or lender friendly structures in terms of fee out there, right? We say हम 1 रुपया भी fee या income नहीं book करेंगे until the investor makes the full principal and gets his full indicative yield back. Say for example, the indicative yield is 10%. तो आपने लगाए 1 लाख रुपए, पूरा 1 लाख रुपए प्रिंसिपल पहले आपको वापस आएगा, 10,000 रुपीज ऑफ इंटरेस्ट आएगा, उसके बाद जो बचा है becomes technically our fees. So we are fully aligned with you. अगर कोई NPA होता है, effectively हमारा fees shrink हो जाता है instead of you taking the hit. तो जो जनरल नोशन होता है कि आपने तो लोन दे दिया और NPA का हिट मेरे को आएगा, we are also effectively getting hit if there is a NPA on the platform. Now going to all of these changes, right? जो perceived notion था P2P का कि extremely high risk, पता नहीं किसको दे रहे हैं, कौन से टाउन में कौन लोन ले रहा है, उसको हम कितना एक्सपोजर ले रहे हैं. It was extremely high risk, high return. We've tried to convert that to low risk and a good return product. So obviously returns have come down. It is no longer 18%, 24%, 36% जो पहले का notion था pre 2017-18 in the P2P lending landscape. Now that return expectation has come down, but the risk has also come down significantly. So what's been our track record? I've given you where are we investing, what are we doing, where are we disbursing the funds. The track record is till date cumulatively we've disbursed over 7,000 crores of loans. On that, our NPA ratios are very low. So as we speak today, NPA ratios are in the range of 1%. That compares very well with most good banks and NBFCs that you would have heard of or come across. And very importantly, one of the most important metrics for us is 100% success rate in meeting indicative yields. So all investors who invested, no one has lost even a single rupee of principal, for single rupee of interest, let alone losing principal on the platform. So if you've invested into a scheme, जिसका indicative return was 10%. You have exactly made the 10% if you state the entire duration. So this is true not just at a company level, but for each individual investor portfolio. Because in P2P, you have to generate the return from the underlying investor's portfolio. Unlike a mutual fund जहाँ सब पैसा एक pool में आ जाता है, उसका एक common NAV होता है, whether Swapnil invest or I invest or Neil invest, that common NAV applies to all. In this case, each of you all who have invested can log on to your portal or to our portal, and you will be able to see your respective portfolios. So the 235, 565 borrowers that have been allocated to you will be visible to your portfolio. Now those borrowers may not be the same for me or for Swapnilji. So quick recap of what our current offerings are, right? So current offerings, we have tenured offerings, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. the indicative rates for all of these schemes are 9%, 9.5%, and 10% respectively. So quick disclosure again, none of these returns are guaranteed either by the platform or by RBI. These are just indicative yields. Obviously, we've also shared what our track record is in meeting these indicative yields, but standard disclaimer that any principal that you invest onto a P2P platform is subject to a certain amount of risk, and therefore consult your financial advisor before investing. So we've got schemes for the short term also and long term also. Each of the schemes that we have also a growth option and monthly interest payout option. अगर आप बोलते हैं I want to let my money compound for 2 years, you can invest into a 2-year scheme. No cash flow will come in the interim period. Obviously, any cash flow that comes from borrowers will keep getting reinvested into new borrowers. And 2 साल बाद पूरा principal plus पूरा interest accrued at that point of time, you will be able to come onto the platform to withdraw. And you can take a monthly interest payout option also. Any interest accrued for the month will be paid out within 2 working days from the end of the month. So आपने अगर 15 Jan को भी invest किया, any interest accrued till 31st of Jan will be paid out by 2nd of Feb. This option is there for all the schemes on the platform. The indicative return remains the same. But अगर हम 10% की scheme में डालते हैं, growth option में exactly 10% आएगा. In the monthly interest payout option, on a 1 lakh rupee investment, you will not earn 10,000 because you have started withdrawing the interest beforehand. So the payout will be somewhere in the 9,500, 9,600 range, because any money that you have withdrawn, you can invest somewhere else and compound or earn future interest on that also. So I think some of you all might have also heard over the last year, there's a lot of media coverage, lot of news around P2P. RBI started regulating P2P platforms more actively. So what I'll try to do right now is just give you a gist of what's happened in the industry over the last 1.5 years. And before that, because the industries are regulated by the RBI, it's also important to understand the role of the regulator. Any regulator in any geography, and more particularly India, first and foremost, their job is to protect the participants, be it lenders and borrowers in our case, or could be just investors, or could be just borrowers, depending on the entity that they're regulating. So their first role is to ensure that there is no systemic risk by any activity that any of the platforms are doing, and secondly, protect all the individual stakeholders, which is lenders, borrowers, investors, as the case may be. So their job then becomes to preempt the risk. Over the period of time, as industry keeps growing, right, as mutual funds have grown over the last 25 years, ऐसा नहीं हुआ है कि SEBI ने 2007 में regulation बनाया and those have applied till now. As the industry has grown, they have found it apt to keep introducing new changes to the regulation as per the need of the time. So entry load भी वही लाए, entry load abolish भी उन्होंने किया, B30 का incentives लाए थे at some point of time, that also they abolished. So over the period of time, as and when there's a need for a change in regulations, regulators will always keep enhancing the regulations over a period of time. So this is nothing to be worried about. Like Sorbh again mentioned, we are one of the most regulated countries, and that actually is for the betterment of the investors and lenders on the platform, right? उनके safety के लिए regulator काम कर रहा है. Is actually on your team rather than the platform's team. His job is to ensure that the platform is following all the rules and regulations, so that people who invested their money is safe on the platform. Sorry. So what's happened over the last year? So 2023 is when the guidelines had approximately completed 5 years. The industry had grown to some meaningful size of 5,000 crores and higher. And that is when the regulator decided that now we'll visit all the P2P platforms in the country, all of the ones that are operational, and do some amount of audit, like SEBI does for mutual fund houses on an annual basis. They will evaluate what the players are doing, what their business model is, where are they lending, what are the risk practices, how compliant they are, KYC ठीक से करने हैं कि नहीं. So all the factors that underlie risk for any bank or any NBFC and customized to a P2P platform, they did over the last 1 year. So they visited most of the players who are operational in nature, some of the players multiple times, including us, because we were one of the largest players even last year. So over that period of time, they understood what our respective business model was, suggested some changes to us कि आपको ये change करना चाहिए, this is not as per the guideline, this is as per the guideline, and respective timelines were given कि इतने time में आपको change करना है, इस format में change करना है. Luckily for us, they visited us again and re-evaluated the changes that we had already done. So in a sense, we got reverse confirmation also of even after the changes, are we fully compliant or not? And most of the things that they'd asked, we had fully implemented by the time they did these changes. But in addition, what happened is, because P2P was a new industry, 2017 May, they had given us a lot of flexibility because they wanted to see how this evolves in a country like India. And that answer might be different from the US and UK, which is actually the case. US and UK में different kind of participants say different kind of rules say. For example, As some of you all might know, the maximum investment that you can do on the platform today is capped at 50 lakhs. कोई भी अदर प्रोडक्ट होता है, AIF minimum is 1 crore, PMS minimum is 50 lakhs. So all other products have a minimum investment limit. I can't think of a single other product which has a maximum investment limit when it comes to a single investor. So this is one of the risk mitigation things that RBI put into practice very early. Now, owing to this market was bound to develop very differently from the US, where there is no maximum limit, there is no minimum limit. Anyone and everyone can participate. Banks can also participate. In fact, one of the largest lenders on P2P platforms in the US economy are banks. वो बोलते हैं कि हम इतना मेहनत करके एक लोन दें, उससे अच्छा है कि if I want to deploy $500 million, I'll go through a P2P platform and invest through that. So instead of originating 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh loans myself, I just have to go onto one platform, decide how much to invest, where to invest. Exactly similar to जैसे आप म्यूचुअल फंड में करते हो कि मेरा रिस्क एपेटाइट लो है, I'll put into a balanced advantage fund. Risk appetite is slightly higher, I'll put into large cap. Extremely high, I'll put into small cap or thematic. Same concept applied in the US. So in India, the landscape was bound to evolve differently because the participants were different. There were again restrictions on what kind of lending could we do. We can't do secured lending. Unsecured loans कर सकते हैं maximum 10 lakhs. So 4-5 years they had given flexibility. Last year is when the regulator said, now let us evaluate how the industry has shaped up. And now after that evaluation, if there are certain changes that need to be made to the guideline for further improvement of the industry, for further protection of investors, that they might deem fit to enhance. So a couple of changes they've done that you can't take an FLDG. So I'll not get into the technicality of that for audience sake right now. But FLDG नहीं कर सकते P2P platform. So now, as and when future guidelines come, either for NBFC or for P2P, they will keep enhancing over a period of time. What did we do as a associate or as an industry last year? So at an industry level, the top 10 players who accounted for almost 95% of the AUM in the P2P industry came together and formed the P2P association. This association is very similar to AMFI, right? So in the mutual fund construct, you've got AMFI, which is like a self-regulatory organization formed by the mutual fund houses themselves. It is not a body formed by SEBI, it is a body formed by the mutual fund houses themselves, where they self-regulate and ensure that certain practices, including investor awareness, marketing, communication, all of those are standardized, and they do a lot of other things for the improvement of the industry also. So this body is obviously much smaller and much tinier organization as compared to AMFI, but we've incorporated this last year. Achal, my co-founder, has been appointed the president of the organization, and to bring an independent view and also a regulatory view, we've got Mr. US Paliwal on board, who was the former executive director of RBI, retired recently, who came on board. So now he'll be the independent person on the board of this association, who will guide us on how to proceed when it comes to regulations. How can we as an organization or we as an association improve what the participants are doing? So coming back to the product now, who can invest, right? Almost anyone with a PAN can invest into this product with the maximum limit of 50 lakhs. Individuals can invest, private limited, public limited, HUF, LLPs, partnership firms, and NRIs can also invest through their NRO account. And trusts also, non-charitable trust can also invest. So almost all the entities that have a PAN can potentially invest, but the maximum limit is capped at 50 lakh rupees across all P2P lending platforms. So ऐसा नहीं कि आप हर एक 4 प्लेटफॉर्म में 50-50 लाख डालने हैं, चारों में मिला के maximum you can invest 50 lakh of rupees. What can you use that for? This again an indicative list. Sure.
So different PAN would be considered by considering 50 lakhs as a number.
Hopefully one person does not have different PANs.
My question is, an individual, he is there, he has multiple partnership firms and multiple different partners. Then the respective multiple partnership firm can also invest 50 lakhs?
Yes.
Because different PAN.
Different PAN. Yes.
So a legal PAN with a legal structure can invest, because an individual will have an HUF, you will have private limited multiples. That time, that's not an issue.
HUF is 100% allow, but I am not a CA myself, so allow me some leeway on the partnerships piece that I'll probably check and get back. Our team will get back to Swapnil ji. That I'm not 100% confident of, because वो I think instance है नहीं हमारे पास ज़्यादा. But HUF generally होता है. Individual can invest through his account also, and multiple people have done that. A lot of people can do it through the HUF also, because again this is taxed on your tax bracket rate. So कई बार अगर HUF में you are not in the 30% tax bracket, a lot of people invest through the HUF also. what can you use this product for? Again, this is an indicative list. Customize it through your financial advisor for how it fits your risk return paradigm. You can firstly, most importantly, right, India में जो savings corpus बनाने का habit था through any fixed income product, this fits in very well there also. You can keep consistently adding to your corpus on the platform and keep saving money over the period of time. Second, it's a great product, right? पहले, if you remember, monthly income plan होते थे from some of the mutual fund houses. Some of the old traditional investments had a monthly interest payout option. We've tried to replicate that. Anyone जिसके वो monthly interest का requirement है या monthly income का requirement है in addition to their primary source of income, this can be one of the products that gives you a consistent or a almost consistent monthly income. So anyone who has that need, this product fits in very well. कोई भी short term goal है, anything that you want to do, you're planning a vacation next year, you want to buy a car 2 years later, you want to pay the school fees of your child, any fixed short term goal where you may not feel comfortable investing into equity, because typically एक साल में how the markets perform is anyone's guess. You will typically use it for a tenure of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years and longer. So short term goals in the 0 to 3 year bracket is where this product fits in quite well. Again, long term also, right? Most investors will not have 100% allocation to equity. आपका 90-10 होएगा, 70-30 होएगा, 50-50 होएगा, depending on your risk appetite. Now, from that fixed income allocation, some portion can definitely go to this product, because this is one of the only products which will consistently beat inflation. FD ka rates will generally, in good and bad years, depending on the year, not be able to beat inflation. But here, because of the underlying nature of the loans, you will generally be able to beat inflation on a consistent basis. So quickly about the company again. As a company, we've got, although we're a startup, we've done reasonably well over the last 5-6 years. Our revenues in last year were over 200 crores. We've been profitable as an entity for the last 3 years consistently, including the COVID year, which was possibly the worst year. कोई भी lending firm, especially in the retail lending segment, if you ask them, COVID was the worst year, because सबकी job साथ में आ रही थी, सबको salary cut साथ में मिल रहा था, सबका health emergency for individual as well as their families was happening exactly at the same time. So during that year, we turned profitable. On the fintech side, some of the firms that you would have heard of, ET Money का एक earn करके product है, Cred करके credit card bill payment app है, they have a Cred Mint product. Bharat Pay has the Bharat Pay 12% club. All of these products, we are the backend P2P lender that is powering. So they are sourcing lenders and investors for us as a platform. Number of borrowers cumulatively since inception till date, we've disbursed loans to over 15 lakh borrowers. So जो performance भी है, ऐसा नहीं कि छोटे sample size पे 50, 100, 200 borrowers जिसको I have personally sat down and evaluated. This on a very, very large sample size of 15 lakh borrowers. In fact, this number might be larger than some of the large firms that you would have heard of, right? If someone is doing home loans, they will probably not even have 1 lakh borrowers in a 10-year span, because the ticket size of loans that we do is very, very small. The number of borrowers ends up becoming very, very high. And on the lender side, we've crossed over 2 lakh lenders recently. So more than 2 lakh participants, not just in Maharashtra, in Mumbai, in Pune, but pan India, a lot of investors and lenders have come onto our platform. So that's it from our end. We'll just now open up the floor for any questions that you might have.
So what was the reason for stopping investment in P2P from a liquid fund perspective? Earlier, even 7 days, etc. Also was there. Now I see it's more than 3 months.
Correct.
What was the reason from it was a company's decision or an RBI intervention and the change?
Sure. So I'll answer that. I hadn't completed that in the PPT because the audience was diverse. So just to give you a sense of the question, right? पहले जैसे आपने अभी देखे 3 month, 6 month, 12 month प्रोडक्ट थे, मिनिमम 3 months था. पहले we used to have a liquid option also कि आप आज पैसे डाल के 10 दिन बाद, 20 दिन बाद, 50 दिन बाद, 70 days later, whenever you want to withdraw, you could request for a redemption, and if the transaction went through, you would get back the money in on a T plus 2 day basis. So what happened as part of the PAN industry audit last year was that a product which was there in some shape or form for always, but it had become very popular on our platform. A lot of the participants in the industry had replicated some version of this format. Now, because there was no consistent marketing, no highlighting of what is the risk with this product, कि हो सकता है liquid में आपने withdraw किया नहीं मिला. That potentiality exists, like with any exchange, right? Because this is not a product, the liquidity in this product was not guaranteed by the company. We would do our best effort. Historically, the success rate was again 100%, but there was a possibility that you requested for a withdrawal and you did not get a withdrawal. Now that this was not adequately highlighted by most of the platforms that were offering this product. So this was again a source of discomfort. The underlying to the regulator, the underlying product was always sound and valid, right? Because for the investor it was a beneficial option as long as the company was able to manage the risk well and deliver on that expectation, which obviously is true for any product, right? Mutual funds mein jaise aapne pucha, you and Sorbh ji mentioned you have to evaluate the MC and find whether it is capable of delivering on your expectations. Same was the case with this. Now, when the association was formed, because this was a cause of concern and we weren't getting full clarity, we took sort of a mature voluntary decision ki let us pause this until we get full clarity. And there were some changes some of the players also had to make at the back end to be able to be fully compliant on this. Because we had developed this, we ensured that we were fully compliant from day one. But that may not have been the case for all players. Again, I will not be privy to the details. But because that was the case, at an association level, thinking of the long-term interest of the industry, we said, let us pause this until we get full clarity. And all the players have the requisite back-end infrastructure to be able to offer this service in a fully legal and compliant manner. So around March is when we paused that as an option. And now as an investor or lender, when you come onto the platform, the minimum tenure that you have to lock your money in for is at least 3 months.
But nothing, so it was association's decision, nothing from the regulator.
Yes, absolutely. So like अभी आपने देखा ही होगा RBI का in the last 2 years, right? There has been so much activity. IFL, JM, ICICI Bank, HDFC, Kotak, Bajaj, almost all the entities they have turned up the regulatory heat. And जहाँ भी issue होता है, they actually put in a sort of a what do you I forget the word right now, but they put in something in the public forum that these are the changes that we've done. IFL, for example, cannot do gold loans going forward until we allow them to do so. So nothing of that sort, as you would have seen, has come out. It was a purely voluntary decision from our end, and therefore we did it in a staggered manner. Also, like when we announced it, it was not an immediate closure. We gave participants and lenders time to actually transition out to the new format. That liberty we had because we took that call proactively instead of being instructed to do so.
Do you match the investors' right now and lenders' repayments?
Schedule, I have invested for 3 months, so you will find a borrower for with a 3 months repayment, or that is not the case?
That is not the case. So you actually invest into a portfolio of loans. At the end of those 3 months, when you are exiting, typically all of those loans are sold in the secondary market, and that is how you get an exit. Because होएगा क्या सर कि अगर मैंने 3 months में इनिशियली borrower भी ढूंढ लिए 3 months में, उनका अगले महीने तो EMI वापस आएगा. I will not wait for 3 months to collect the first repayment. अब वो जब EMI वापस आया, then I have to find a 2-month borrower. अब वो 2-month borrower नहीं मिला, तो your money will lie idle. Your return will go down. So that is one way to do it. The other way is we say we keep maximizing the deployment. And deployment ज़्यादा हुआ तो return ज़्यादा होएगा. At that point of time, we will, because we already have a very active secondary market, we will be able to facilitate an exit at the end of 3 months. Otherwise, let's say 15 days जब बचे, 15 days from your 3-month period, 75 days हो गए, अब से 15 दिन बचे. Then तो I can't deploy any money that has come back. Again, you lose so much interest. So in a 3-month product, मालूम पड़ा 2 महीने आपका पैसा ही नहीं deploy हुआ. Your returns are going to be 2-3% at max on an annualized basis.
So how the escrow account is operated by trustees? Who are those trustees?
Sure. So I'll explain.
Because of private limited there are directors. Among trust board there is a trustee. So is the escrow account is operated by some other trust?
So the एक कोई अगर trust, these are two different legal entities, private limited like you mentioned, and trust. Trust के एक board of directors या trustees होते हैं. The equivalent of that is board of directors in a private limited company. Now there are companies which offer trustee services. जैसे कभी भी अगर आप NCD इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, तो जो भी कंपनी NCD इशू करती है, उसको एक ट्रस्टी अपॉइंट करना है हो पड़ता है कि so that the settlement of your money can happen. They ensure that the company follows the rules and regulations when they are taking retail money. So similarly, in our case, the trustee is a company called ICICI Trusteeship Services Limited, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of ICICI Bank. These company offer trusteeship as a service. वो क्या बोलते हैं कि you will not necessarily form a trust. Mutual funds में trust actually बनता है separately, and therefore it is applicable. Here here you don't have to form a separate trust. ICICI Bank is the trustee who is acting on behalf of the in the favor of the lenders and will ensure that P2P platforms, whoever they may be, follow all the required rules and regulations when it comes to the lending through the escrow account. So that is the entity which is doing acting as a trustee. It is not a separate trust that we form. Escrow account is a bank account with a special status, एंड उसके ऊपर एक ट्रस्टी अपॉइंटेड है कि अगर 1 रुपया भी डिसबर्समेंट करना है, वी विल सेंड इंस्ट्रक्शंस टू द ट्रस्टी, ही विल वेट वेरीफाई डू व्हाटएवर ड्यू डिलिजेंस दैट दे नीड टू डू, एंड देन दे विल फॉरवर्ड द इंस्ट्रक्शन टू द बैंक कि ये आप ट्रांजैक्शंस कर दो, इतने इतने रुपए इन बोरोवर्स को डिसबर्स कर दो.
They are there only for withdrawal. Trust board is there for withdrawal.
They are there for both disbursement भी, वो each and every money that comes out. So 3 more or less use case होते हैं: disbursement to the borrower, and उसके pursuant recollection from the borrower, which is we do through NASH, withdrawals for the investors, and for us to withdraw our fees when it is due. These are the 3 large headers, and छोटे छोटे और होंगे, but large 3 headers are these. All of these are, in fact, or any transaction goes to the trustee. They will vet, is this as per the guidelines, are they following all the rules and regulations? If they are comfortable, they will forward the instructions to the bank to execute.
For your P2P lending, you have a strong, you need to have a strong IT background, this thing on the platform. So how do you ensure that being a system monitor, information system monitor, this question comes to the audience. How do you ensure that even the best platforms and the security is maintained, because sometimes fake transactions might also turn into your platforms. And second question was regarding RBI has come heavily on unsecured loans recently. So how does it affect your P2P?
Sure. So I'll answer both. So just to take a step back, I think systems for us was a major challenge, right? P2P lending का किसी ने भी सॉफ्टवेयर बना के नहीं रखा था, नॉट जस्ट इंडिया बट ग्लोबली ऑल्सो. 1-2 प्लेयर्स थे, बट ऑब्वियसली they would have to customize and build new software for India. So one of the challenges with the P2P industry, unlike any NBFC, is कि पूरा सिस्टम आपको खुद बनाना पड़ा. Now if I'm an NBFC, technically I'll get off the shelf solution जो SaaS बोलते हैं, pay as you go, कि अगर 100 borrower है तो 100 borrower का खर्चा लग रहा है, 10,000 है तो 10,000 per borrower I'm making a payment, and the borrower system is the only system that is there. In P2P, unfortunately, you have the lender side also and the borrower side also, and both of these systems have to talk to each other. So that increased the complexity of the system, all of which we had to build in-house as a company. So we have a 75-member team on the tech side, which builds out this entire system. In addition to this, there is a RBI required audit from an entity like CISA audit करके बोलते हैं, that happens on an annual basis. But we've also gotten the ISO 27001, which ensures that our systems are like much better than the minimum regulatory requirement. Because the moment and it's very fortuitous that the previous session was on cybercrime, right? That is the biggest menace when it comes to money movement in the country, because everything has gone online. It's made life extremely convenient, but it's also made money movement very, very risky. So as a lender, this is one of the first things that we have to solve for. कि हमारा तो borrower himself can be fraud, right? Who does this identity forging and then takes money away from the platform. So not only on the system side, but even on the risk side, we've had to keep the highest standards, because we are a digital only NBFC, unlike some NBFCs जिनका branch होएगा या banks का जैसे branch system होता है. Second question was on, have I answered this adequately? On unsecured lending. So what's happened over the last 5 years, like Sorbh also mentioned in his presentation, if you all saw, कि most corporates have deleveraged. कि कॉर्पोरेट जिन्होंने भी लोन ले रखे थे उन्होंने रिपे कर दिया, बिकॉज लास्ट 4-5 years have been good from a profitability perspective. So the demand or appetite for corporate loans in the last 5 years has been very, very low. In fact, compounding growth rate for loans over the last 5 or 6 years, I don't think is even 2% in the corporate loan side. So as a consequence, what most banks and NBFCs have done over the last few years is shifted to the retail segment. ये हमेशा से था, सेफ भी था, रिटर्न्स भी अच्छे थे, but it was difficult. क्योंकि एक कॉर्पोरेट लोन देना है तो 1,000 crore का लोन आई कैन गिव विद 2 analysts working over a week. But if I have to build a 1,000 crore loan book on the retail side, I will have to give 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh loans to get to that AUM, जिसके लिए ब्रांच खोलने पड़ेंगे, hundreds of people I will have to appoint. So because almost all the capital got shifted to the retail side, there was some sort of, I won't say bubble, but जो लोन का appetite था even in individual customers was going up, and there was one segment of customers who was overborrowing. कि पुराना लोन चुकाने के लिए नया लोन लिया, फिर नया लोन चुकाने के लिए एक और नया लोन लिया, because loans were so freely available. So RBI has not, I would say, come down extremely heavily, but they've increased the risk weightage. They've said अब इसमें risk ज़्यादा है, जैसे कई financial analysts बोलते हैं ना कि अब small cap seems frothy, it seems overheated, so you should proceed with caution. that is exactly what they've done to banks and NBFCs. Now you proceed with caution in this space. We are not saying you have to shut this division down or reduce growth, but for every 100 rupees of lending that you do, the capital that you need to keep aside to weather the downside or weather risk now goes up, which eventually means that it becomes less profitable for a bank or NBFC to do these loans. So they will only do the loans where they are extremely confident. जो थोड़ा extra risk ले रहे थे some of the entities, they will reduce. And keep in mind that the best firms were doing well. Bajaj, HDFC were not taking incremental risk. Maybe some NBFCs or banks on the fringes were taking that incremental risk. But whenever a regulator has to change a regulation, it is for all. They can't do it for specific banks or NBFCs. They've increased the risk weightage at a category level itself.
Yes. So you mentioned about loans to be provided to the upskilling education, swimming, upgrade, and environment. So we run an upskilling education academy ourselves. So is the loan provided to the person who is taking the application, or his parents can apply on behalf? And also, what's the process for the same person? We can definitely ask our customers to approach your loans.
Sure. So I'll answer in short and then take it offline because it may not be super relevant to everyone else. So yes, we in certain cases, जैसे जहाँ graduate course है, there the customer is not earning money. Typically, we do upskilling where the customer is already in a job, is earning a certain amount of monthly income, and then most likely is able to pay for the loan. I think the course that you might be hinting at is where the student is probably in his graduation or post graduation, still studying, does not earn a monthly income yet, and therefore has no ability or capability to repay the loan. In that case, if we were to go ahead, then we would underwrite the parent, and the loan would also be on the name of the parent.
Gautam, I have a question. अभी अपने प्लेटफॉर्म का एनपीए कितना है, हायर साइड पे कितना जा सकता है, एंड till what level of NPA the investors are safe with their money?
Sure. So, abhi historically, and our NPA reporting is a little bit different from banks and NBFCs because there they report on the current AUM and not the historical disbursements. We do it on historical disbursements because that is the right way to do it for the P2P platform. Currently, हमारा जो NPA is between 1 to 1.1% gross NPA. Now, what does 1.1? And this keeps changing on a daily basis. I'm just giving a broad range. And this is on all the disbursements that we have done since inception till date. इसमें कोविड के पहले का भी disbursement है, during कोविड भी disbursement है, कोविड के टाइम जो कुछ borrowers ने default किया, including that, and including some of the borrowers who repaid back even after COVID. So till date, since inception, this is the portfolio. Now the investor actually, because we say you don't take any hit until, or we don't make any fees until your return is met. So effectively that translates into some, let's say, a level of anywhere between 10 to 12%. Until the NPAs exceed 10 to 12%, no investor will take the hit, which is why we have a success rate of 100%, like we mentioned. कि जब 1% NPA है, available pool आपके पास 12% है, until the NPA crosses 12%, investors don't take the hit, and that has never historically happened. Even during COVID, which was, like I mentioned, the worst period, maximum NPA numbers that we had reached at that point of time was 1.6%. Although that was on a smaller base, क्योंकि उस time तक disbursements कम थे. Now, including that number, we are down to 1%.
So just to repeat, right now it is 1 to 1.1, and you are saying that up till 12% of
10 to 12%. Let's take 12% on the lower side.
Interest and principal is not
will not get impacted because we've structured it that way, where we said we will sacrifice our fees until you make the return, or we will not book any fees until you make the full return.
Yes, Hina.
And is it regulated? And how does that impact the yields? And the second question is on the borrower side, do you also fund or do you also include startups or someone starting up an enterprise?
I'll answer the second one first. So that we don't do because we are doing merchant-led loans. So if let's say I am starting up, I want a 10 lakh rupee loan to take care of my initial expenses. That we don't fund because that is a very different risk return category. Doesn't fit into the appetite of the lenders that we are bringing onto board right now. In terms of fees, I'll just explain with an example that will help you understand better. Let's say the indicative return for the 12-month product is 10%. Now the lending rate of the borrowers will definitely be higher than that. Let's say it is 18%. So after the year, if you have invested 1 lakh of rupees, and I'm keeping it extremely simple, so bear with me for that. After the year, all of the borrowers should have paid 1 lakh rupees plus 18%. So 1 lakh 18,000 rupees is what they should have repaid back to you. Now out of that, whatever cash flow comes, first we ensure that you get your principal back, which is 1 lakh, then your interest, which is 10,000 rupees, and whatever is left over after that becomes our fees. Now, if all of the borrowers have repaid, then that fees is equivalent to the remainder, which is 8,000. If some of them have defaulted, 1,18,000 के बदले 115 आया होगा या 1,15,000 आया होगा, then our fees get shrunk from 8,000 to 5,000, which is a 40% haircut for us, and we book only 5,000 rupees of fees. So in either of these cases, as you saw, your investment and your return is protected. Now, when will that return not be protected? I'll give an example of that also. Let's say there's a 10% NPA in this example. Instead of 1,18,000, we got only 108,000 back. So 1,08,000 back. In which case, you will get the entire 1,08,000 and our fees will become zero. Although our costs are significantly higher, unlike an AMC where you invested money, I just have to sit on the exchange and make purchase statements or purchase transactions. Here we have a very strong, like 400-member field team on the field who's actually sourcing these borrowers, उनका underwriting करने हैं, collections करने हैं. So the operations cost is very high, which, like ma'am asked, already gets expensed from our current account. So if we don't earn any fees, we, like as a company, become extremely loss making. And again, since we've been profitable for the last 3 years, we'll not intend to do that in the future either.
Yes. So one question, example you were giving right now, how are 8,000? How are you identifying that?
Sure. So 1 lakh जो आपने डाला, let's say वो 400 borrowers को गया, 250 rupees each. Now each of those borrowers might repay back or may not repay back.
Your system has that to identify the map that you are.
Yes. So if you go log into your portfolio once you invested the 1 lakh on a live basis, 24/7, you will be able to see exactly किस borrowers को गया है पैसा आपका and क्या amount गया है. Additionally, you will be able to see the following details for each borrower. Which city does he reside in? Do I live in Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore? What is my monthly income? What is the total loan that I've taken? I might have taken a loan of 50,000, but आपके portfolio में से आपने सिर्फ मेरे को 300 rupees दिए हैं उसमें से. What is my CIBIL score as a borrower? What is the tenure of the loan and what is the purpose of the loan? So you get practically each and every detail that you might want to ask for, and this is available on all of your portfolios. People who invested can actually log into their portfolio right now and check, and they'll get all the details on the portfolio page. No.
So why is it that I hope you don't need this?
आपका उनके साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं आपको चाहिए तो.
So, one thing, what is the maximum tenure for the borrower?
Maximum tenure by regulation itself is 36 months, but क्योंकि हमारे consumption linked loans हैं, we don't generally go up to 36 months because जो merchant भी है वो he will not give enough interest for 36-month period. So most of our loans are in the 6 to 12 month range. Average is around 10.5 months. So short tenure से एक और advantage होता है कि risk बहुत कम हो जाती है. Like I know where Zen will be or Neil might be or Swapnil ji might be for the 12 months. But अगर मैं home loan दे रहा हूँ उनको 20 years का, तो risk is very high. I don't know what emergency might happen, what family issues might happen in the next 20 years. But 6 to 12 months is very predictable for a borrower. That very limited will happen. And क्योंकि ticket size कम है, कुछ हो भी गया, अगर मेरी job चली भी गई, 30-40,000 rupees का मेरे पास savings होएगा to be able to repay the loan. But I may then default on my home loan because 40,000 का EMI नहीं भर पाऊंगा if I lose my job. But 50,000 ka EMI I might still be able to repay. So all of these actually mitigate risk substantially in the format that we are operating.
And the second question,
Sorry.
What is the total cost running the company as percentage to the investment, and do you bifurcate between the cost and the profits as a percentage to the investment?
Sure. So cost, मैं again structure बता देता हूँ. When you invest a lakh of rupees, typically our OPEX, because this is a low ticket size, low margin business. It's high churn कि आप volume पे कमाते हो, not on a per loan basis. So for most NBFC in this space, including Bajaj Finance at their current scale, OPEX will be anywhere between 6 to 8%. अब आपने जब 1 लाख रुपए डाले, वो let's say it is 8%. That 8% का expense I make out of my current account.
What does the current account mean? Current account is also forming part of
of the full circle of no current account is not part of the circle. You put 1 lakh into an escrow. ऐसा नहीं कि उसमें से मैं I take out the 8,000 and make my expenses. That 1 lakh gets fully invested. From my current account, I make a 8,000 rupee in this example, 8,000 rupee expense for operationalizing these loans and doing collection. क्योंकि 3-3 हज़ार का EMI हर महीने collect ही करना है. जैसे सिर्फ UPI का cost on a loan ends up being 150 rupees, which is almost 2% annualized. So now that expense I make through my current account. After the year, you get 1 lakh plus say whatever is the indicative yield if that is met, and whatever is left over is my fees. Let's say that number is 10,000 rupees. Then after the year, I withdraw 10,000 rupees from the escrow as my fees. That goes into the current account. 2,000 becomes the profit. Now from those 2,000, we will do new loans for new investors that are coming in that time frame. So ऐसे like our working capital cycle in a way is long.
I understand your accounting very correctly. Our 1 lakh rupees of investment is 100% given to a lender, and whatever you will get from a lender, and if there are NPAs less than 10%, then our money is fully protected. Our money has nothing to do with operations.
Yes. None, not a single rupee of any investment आज तक जितना है on the platform will ever go towards us making our corporate expenses. That is one of the key features of this. Like if you think of NBFC का risk framework itself, right? All the NBFCs that have gone down because of credit risk बहुत कम NBFC खराब हुई हैं, right? All the NBFCs that have defaulted in the last 10 to 15 years, at least in my memory, are all because there was some malified intent of the promoters, कुछ fraud issue हो गया, कुछ corporate governance issue हो गया. That is because the lenders' money, which is NCD holders, banks, and the expenses are all fungible for a NBFC. But for a P2P NBFC, RBI has made that distinction. कि investor money is in a separate escrow account, and all of my expenses as a company are from my current account. So this distinction is there only for P2P NBFC.
It's regulated from a company's MOA, AOA, and some regulation. So, for example, you are saying this is a transparency, that this is lender's money, this is working capital. How it is ensured by regulation that tomorrow, if you as a company need some money from year to year, how it is still protected?
So it is protected. I'll just go back to the slide for your reference. Any and every transaction that we have to through the escrow, right? Has to happen through the escrow trustee. अगर कल let's say I am in a dire state, I say I want to withdraw 1 lakh rupees out of the escrow, that is not allowed because I don't have access to my own bank account. Escrow account से हम बैंक को instruction भेजेंगे, they will not take. The जो authorized signatory होता है, if you know the concept in private limited company, authorized signatory का sign ही चाहिए रहता है. तो the authorized signatory equivalent in the escrow bank account is trustee. That trustee is ICICI Bank Trusteeship Services Limited. So any and every instruction to withdraw money from the escrow account has to go through them. This is identical to mutual funds. अगर आप सोचो ट्रस्ट होता है जो उनका AMC होता है या एक्सपेंस रेशियो होता है which accrues on a daily basis, that I am presuming the trustee has to approve only, then they can withdraw into the AMC entity. So Bajaj Finserv जैसे आए थे, Bajaj Finserv AMC will be a separate corporate entity than let's say Bajaj large cap scheme. And usse if that has a 10,000 crore corpus and 1% say for example is the expense ratio that Bajaj is pulling out of it, they will have to go through the trust who will have to authorize this. Same, it's not identical, but it is very similar here, where if I have to withdraw in ma'am's example the 8,000 rupees at the end, I will tell the trustee कि ma'am का investment था, this is the fees as per my contract, can you please withdraw 8,000 and give it back to my current account.
So there's a difference between mutual fund and here. In mutual fund, the money what is allocated as allocable expenses is from our money. In mutual fund, through trustee, but our money.
So maximum amount is defined, but it gets expensed out on a daily basis because
you are saying it's not our money. It's about the profit earned last year. You can
correct, because that sir is a call that we have taken. अब मेरे पास दो ऑप्शन थे. I could have said मैं आपको upfront 3% फी चार्ज कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है. अब मैंने upfront 3% फीस चार्ज कर दी, फिर मैं कलेक्शन नहीं करूँ, इम्पैक्ट आप पे आएगा. जो म्यूचुअल फंड में भी टेक्निकली होता है, आई एम नॉट सेइंग इंटेंट खराब होता है, बट अगर फंड का रिटर्न ज्यादा है या कम है, आपका 2% चार्ज हो जाता है इवन द रिटर्न इज नेगेटिव. सो दैट इज नॉट अ सक्सेस लिंक फी. इफ यू रिमेंबर कि बीच में सेबी एक ऑप्शन लाया था, देयर वाज अ डिस्कशन पेपर दैट दे माइट डू अ सक्सेस लिंक फी फॉर म्यूचुअल फंड्स आल्सो. दैट्स ऑब्वियसली गॉन ऑन टू द बैक बर्नर, बट वी हैव वॉलंटरली डन अ सक्सेस लिंक फी. आई कुड हैव सेड दैट 8% आई एम चार्जिंग अपफ्रंट. अब आपके पैसे का जो भी होएगा इज योर हेडेक, रिस्क इज योर्स, रिटर्न इज योर्स.
And trustees are ensuring that
yes.
on our behalf.
Yes. So if the contract between you and me says I will charge you 5% upfront, then the trustee will look at the contract and say, as per contract, I am allowed to do that. But the contract itself that we sign with you says I will charge fees only after your indicative return is met. So they will go by that contract and say whether that contract is being honored. That flexibility RBI gives us to decide. Now we've chosen the conservative path where we are saying we will charge our fees later.
This is written anywhere
In your and our agreement it will be written. So like if you go through the agreement, generally कोई पढ़ता नहीं है, even a FD agreement or a insurance agreement.
anywhere in your annual report also anywhere that these are the policies of the company.
It's there on the FAQ. So if you go onto the website, again annual report, very few people read and access. But within the FAQs, you'll be able to read that our fees is in this manner. But उसके बाद भी आपका मन हुआ to give me front-ended fees, I will give you that flexibility to do that. Sorry, you were waiting for the.
An individual lender has a limit of 50 lakhs. I was not very sure whether it is per platform or it is across all platform and how it is actually regulated that.
Does sir right now where it is across platforms as per the guidelines. Having said that, there is no centralized database yet to be able to track this, which was one of our, as an association, that was one of our feedbacks to the regulator, that there has to be a centralized reporting mechanism where all of this gets reported. For example, borrowers में CIBIL होता है, bureau होता है, उन सब में all NBFCs and the banks are supposed to report. So there is effectively a centralized database to identify who has taken how much loan. But P2P is again a very, I would say, a very very tiny drop in the ocean right now. Subsystems बन के evolve होने में time लगेगा. So maybe sometime in the future there will be a database where we will be able to see whether you invested somewhere else, and if you invested 50 lakhs somewhere else, we'll be forced to disallow you from investing on the platform. But as of now, you're right, वो नहीं है. You can go. See, the agenda there is for the regulator to restrict you from taking undue risk. And this was true honestly back in the 16-17 era जब 18-24% होता था. तो मतलब कई लोग टेम्प्ट हो जाते हैं ना, 24% 36% रिटर्न मिल रहा है, मैं लोन लेके डाल देता हूँ, उस पर कमाता हूँ. So that was the purpose of restricting it to 50 lakhs. Ki you should not sort of make a business out of this and take undue risk. If something goes wrong, which is possible in any financial services product, right? Then what will happen? Then you will, like a बहुत सारे retail investor होंगे, it becomes a headache for the regulators as well as the government. But ideally, you should avoid it because regulatory hai. Even if we don't have a mechanism, we take a self-declaration from you. So effectively the onus is not on us. But अगर if something as per regulations is already defined, then why would you want to exceed? ऐसा तो है नहीं, जैसा equity asset class where you're making 15-18%. जब debt kind of return ही मिल रहा है, don't take undue risk is my suggestion.
Point was not only about the financial risk but the compliance risk. Like if I am doing something and I am not aware of that, then this is the risk.
So honestly, there's no bearing because bearing is on platform. Platform ensures that we take a declaration from you that because we don't have any other mechanism, we have to rely on your declaration. Even if an investor does it, there is no bearing on him because he's not regulated, but it is best avoided. Sorry.
Token platform comes, will P2P industry form part of it going forward?
I don't. So I think as far as, and pardon me because my understanding is not very high on this front. Token is mainly for SMEs on the lending side. कि क्या होता था कि आज एक SME को जाके बैंक से लोन लेना है, they go like tons of paperwork. हर एक बैंक का अलग अलग paperwork होता है. Each loan they have to start and it takes two months. So they said let us centralize and commonalize or standardize the database. Fitch, he puts all of his information on that one platform. Whoever wants to give a loan can give a loan. But because we are capped at 10 lakhs at a borrower level, typically SMEs will not find our platform attractive and we will not find them attractive. So it will be a more relevant platform for banks and NBFCs than P2P lenders. And we are anyway focusing on retail, which is individuals. So there OCEN का इतना requirement नहीं है, 2 मिनट में आपको पता ही है लोन मिल जाता है to a individual borrower today. So it's already very smooth and seamless.
So one last question.
Yes, sir.
Reserve कैसा रखते हैं?
So रिजर्व का इसमें कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं मैम, बिकॉज वी ऑपरेट लाइक अ प्लेटफॉर्म. सो कोई अगर बैंक या एनबीएफसी होती है, वो आपको क्या बोलती है कि आपने जो पैसा डाला है उस पर आपको फिक्स्ड रिटर्न मिल रहा है एंड मेरा गारंटी है, राइट? एनी इन्वेस्टमेंट दैट यू डू, एफडी में भी आपको गारंटी मिलता है कि कंपनी इज लायबल टू पे, डिबेंचर में भी मिलता है, बॉन्ड में भी मिलता है. बिकॉज दैट गारंटी दे आर गिविंग, दे हैव टू कीप अ सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ रिजर्व एज पर रेगुलेशन. नाउ बिकॉज P2P NBFCs कैन नॉट गिव दैट गारंटी. अगर मैं चाहूँ भी, like I am extremely confident, the reason we've done the fee structure which is back-ended is because I am confident हर investor को हर बार return मिलेगा ही. But even no matter how confident I am, I can't give it to you in writing or say it is a guarantee from mine. Now owing to that, there is no reserve requirement technically on P2P NBFCs because they are supposed to operate like a marketplace. So when you're operating like a marketplace, Similar to AMCs, ki if a AMC is managing a 8 lakh crore, 5 lakh crore corpus also, if a bank is managing a 5 lakh crore book, they will have to keep 10% reserve, NBFC will have to keep 15% reserve. But if an AMC is managing 5 lakh of crores, they don't have to keep, apart from the minimum requirement, jo hota hai 50 crores to set up the AMC as net worth. After that, that net worth does not increase as a percentage of the AUM that they are managing, because they are not guaranteeing any returns. So any platform kind of business which is not in the business of guaranteeing returns doesn't have to maintain a reserve requirement. And again, this is as per the guidelines itself.
Borrower cap.
So 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs maximum. A borrower can also, across platforms, borrow only 10 lakhs. And in terms,
Can he prepay?
yes, he can prepay. And depending on it depends on the loan, product, कहाँ से लिया है, कैसे लिया है, हर एक loans पे. But in most cases, he can prepay. Now, in fact, in almost all the loans in the country, you can prepay. The question is, prepayment pay, is there a penalty, the fee that you have to pay or not? In most loan categories, over a period of time, RBI has disallowed any fees to be charged, specifically home loans, for example. In our case also, depending on the product, there might be a prepayment fee, may not be a prepayment fee. Generally, no cost में prepayment fee नहीं होता है, because the borrower is anyway paying for the same 50,000 rupees. He's not paying interest. Interest has already been paid by the merchant. So now, typically, you will find a no prepayment fee clause in most no cost EMI loans.
So we can still have one quick question. Yes, Amit.
इन्वेस्टर हूँ, मेरा दो सवाल है. एक तो अगर पेरेंट रहते हैं, अगर सीनियर सिटीजन रहते हैं, तो उनके लिए मोबाइल नंबर अलग अलग चाहिए. तो मेरे लिए डिफ़िकल्ट होता है. हम लोग पेरेंट को सिखाते हैं आप किसी को OTP मत दो, और आपके यहाँ अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट होता है तो उनसे OTP लेते हैं, तो उस टाइम बहुत डिफ़िकल्ट होता है. अभी घर में 2 मेंबर रहेंगे और उनका HF अकाउंट रहेगा और पेरेंट रहेंगे, तो 5 नंबर लगते हैं, तो ये देना मुश्किल हो जाता है. तो इस केस में क्या सिचुएशन है? और सेकंड थिंग, जो बोरोर्स आपके हैं, हमने जो फंड आपको दिया हुआ है, उसके बोरोर के कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन हमको मिलती है.
So दोनों में एक एक करके आंसर कर देना. सर, फर्स्ट इज वी हैव मेड फोन नंबर मैंडेटरी एंड सेपरेट, बिकॉज कई सारे डिजिटल जाने के कुछ कन्वीनियंस होते हैं, कुछ नेगेटिव्स भी होते हैं. तो इफ आई हैव टू गो डिजिटल एंड आई हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई एन इंडिविजुअल, तो आज उसका ईजिएस्ट वे है फोन नंबर, क्योंकि वन पर्सन टिपिकली माइट हैव मल्टीपल फोन नंबर्स, बट वन फोन नंबर जैसे पहले होता था लैंडलाइन में, विल नॉट हैव मल्टीपल स्टेक होल्डर्स. तो वो कन्वीनियंस करने के लिए, क्योंकि ट्रांजैक्शन अगर मेरे को ईजी करना है, इन डिजिटल फॉर्मेट करना है, विदाउट साइन, विदाउट मीटिंग यू, आई हैव टू बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई कि जो आपने रिक्वेस्ट डाला है वो आप ही ने डाला है, किसी और ने नहीं डाला है आपके बिहाफ पे. देयरफॉर दैट कंस्ट्रेंट एग्जिस्ट. अब उससे जो बेनिफिट होते हैं इज व्हाट यू वुड हैव सीन इन द प्रोसेस, की बहुत ही ईजी हो जाता है टू इन्वेस्ट. ऑनलाइन अकाउंट क्रिएशन इज वेरी वेरी सिंपल. उसका नेगेटिव इज दैट एनी investment that you're doing, any new account that you're creating, each of them has to have एक unique phone number. So I understand where you're coming from, वो concern भी मैं समझ रहा हूँ, but unfortunately that is the negative of making it very very simple. उसका एक solution है offline which I think Ops team will share with you, where you give a common mandate across your family level, where they are appointing you as effectively the POA holder for all their accounts. की बनाते टाइम आपको अलग अलग फ़ोन नंबर बनाना पड़ेगा, बट जब आप ऑपरेट कर रहे हो, योर फोन नंबर माइट बी द ऑपरेटिंग फोन नंबर. सेकंड क्वेश्चन जो था आपका बॉलर के तहत, तो आप अपने अकाउंट में जब जाएंगे या किसी भी फैमिली मेंबर के अकाउंट में जाएंगे थ्रू देयर लॉगिन्स, एक पोर्टफोलियो करके पेज आता है. वो पोर्टफोलियो पेज पे आपको हर एक बॉलर जो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में, उसका आपको डिटेल्स मिलेगा. कितने बॉलर्स हैं, लेट्स से आपके 300 बॉलर हैं आपके पोर्टफोलियो में, हर एक बॉलर कौन सी सिटी में रहता है, क्या उसका सिबिल स्कोर है, कितने अमाउंट का उसने लोन लिया है, आपने उसको कितने अमाउंट का दिया है. अगर उसने 25,000 का लोन लिया, हो सकता है आपने उसमें से सिर्फ 500 रुपये उसको लोन दिए. कितने टेन्योर के लिए उसने लोन लिया है, उसका मंथली इनकम क्या है, एंड उसका ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम अगर वो NPA हो जाता है तो भी वो पोर्टफोलियो में उसी पेज पे दिखता है. तो हर एक बॉलर के हर एक रेलिवेंट डिटेल्स आपको पोर्टफोलियो पे दिखते हैं, एंड जैसे जैसे चेंज होता है डैशबोर्ड पे लाइव अपडेट होता है. तो आज अगर आप जाके पोर्टफोलियो देखेंगे, 300 बॉलर है, अगले महीने तक उनमें से कुछ ने रीपेमेंट कर दिया होगा, नए बॉलर ऐड हो गए, तो वो भी कंटिन्यूसली आप ट्रैक कर सकते हैं.
बॉरोवर का पैन और नाम नहीं दिखता है, बाकी सब
यस.
I would request Dr. Sunanda Rati ma'am to please come forward to hand over the token of appreciation to Mr. Gautam Adhukia. Ma'am has been an
invested. The attendance, what I see, has given me the confidence to have such events in the years to come. I thank all the three different speakers to come over here, spare your time and share your experience as well with our audience. Thanks, Mr. Sorbh, Gupta, Mr. Neil Borate and Gautam Adhukia for sharing. I think I have also personally learned a lot, though LiquiLoans is something which I have done over the past 3 years, but a lot of learnings from today's sessions. Big thanks to Kunal Kharade and the Bajaj FinServ team for your wholehearted support right from planning till execution of this event. Thanks a lot, everyone. I would request all of you to please join us for the lunch. The speakers are also over here. We can have informal discussions with the speakers as well. Thank you all. Thank you.
I think this was a really great session. All the three sessions were really very informative. I loved every bit of it. Thanks, Swapnil and the Finoglobin team for making such an amazing event. I hope we have many such events in the future. Thank you so much.
First of all, thanks to Swapnil and Finoglobin. Uh, when I was invited, I thought it's a normal session. Let's attend. But post attending all those three sessions, three speakers, definitely there were many doubts in my mind. Uh, Even after having a lot of financial literacy, what they call, still I felt there were many things which I learned, starting from the P2P loan, where there are more risk, but a lot of doubts were clarified in that session. And definitely the first session by the Bajaj Finser was very nice, well planned, well event, and I would love to attend such more sessions planned by Finoglobin. Thank you.
Both the sessions were very informative. Sorbh and Gautam were amazing. On the Indian equity, got lot of insight on how things work and how things are going to be in future. So short term नहीं देखना है, long term देखना है करके. I think and 15% returns बोल के or whatever, it was very very informative and educative. And I think P2P session was an eye opener on how well the digital platform has been set up and how it can really help people, small investors, how it protects them, and how it will help invest more. I think it gave me a lot of confidence in probably increasing my investment as well in it. Thank you to Swapnil and team for having us here for this event. Thank you so much.